Chapter 56-46. One by one, they climbed out of the bottomless pit and followed the ropes woven from yellow vines. Everyone cautiously crawled and didn't communicate much along the way. It wasn't until they reached the top and stepped on solid ground that everyone breathed sighs of relief one after another. When they focused their eyes, they only saw a pitch-black tunnel in front of them. There was a bit of light on the side. Madame Emo took out a night-luminescent pearl the size of a ball and held it in her palm as she paced back and forth at the entrance of the pit. Thump, 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 thump. Feng Changqing and the others took out hammers from their inner worlds and were smashing the wall beside them. The big-bellied man jumped in fright and quickly cried out in horror. Hey, don't smash. Don't smash. If the entire cave collapses, it'll be a serious matter. Flying is prohibited here, and there are gravity restraints everywhere. I think we can't be too rash. Right, this brother's words are reasonable. Young Master Emo, Madame Emo, I think we should move forward in this tunnel and see what's inside. Yeah, who knows, we might be able to get out if we keep going forward. In your dreams, Arbor retorted before turning to look at the surroundings. Continue hammering. Thump, thump, thump. After receiving Sir Jojo's order, Feng Changqing and the others hammered the cave wall even harder. Wait a minute. Did you guys hear anything? Arbor expressionlessly glanced at the pitch-black cave wall and silently covered himself with an eggshell defensive barrier. Get ready. Duan couldn't help but twitch his mouth, and he also quickly activated a defensive barrier to protect himself and baby Mo. According to Jojo's annoying personality, something terrible was about to happen. Emolien, Rotten Peach Blossom, Little Tai Sui, and the others were already familiar with Jojo's trickery, so they also silently activated their defensive barriers. In the blink of an eye, there was a loud boom. The cave wall that Feng Changqing and the others had just hammered was now broken open by a surging current. The raging flood surged along with the crowd, drowning everyone with a splash. Stoic Joe was encased in a transparent eggshell defensive barrier, and he floated along with the current as he rushed toward the tunnel. Her eggshell was amazing. His speed was especially fast, and in a flash, he was far ahead of the thousands of soldiers and horses. Everyone watched as she drifted along with the current, and then swished past. The eggshell was tossed about in the water. The little Stoic followed this eggshell, and toppled it all over the place. The corners of her mouth were pursed into a stern straight line, and a somewhat cracked expression appeared on her small face. Land whale! She roared with all her might. Everyone only heard a muffled roar in their ears. Soon, they felt as if their bodies were being lifted up by a small mountain. The land whale was huge, and it lifted the group of unlucky people who were drifting with the current. It was running fast in the direction of Arbor with its short legs. However, Sir Jojo's eggshell was truly amazing. She performed exceptionally well as soon as she entered the water and swam especially fast. She couldn't even control herself. Hence, the land whale chased after her for a while before finally barking twice. Why chase? Once Little Master entered the water, she was like a fish back in water. It was useless to chase because he couldn't catch up at all. Sir Jojo expressionlessly was swept forward by the current, and a sparkling waterfall suddenly appeared before her eyes. Her small mouth opened into an O shape again. Fuck, it's happening again. Chapter 56-47. She remembered that a long time ago, she had also been washed down into a bottomless pool by a waterfall. What was going on? Why the heck was she tricked again after entering the holy domain and the holy palace? The little Stoic stretched out 2 fingers with a taut face and attached gravity talismans to her body with a smack, smack, smack. With the weight of 500 kilograms attached, her body was as heavy as an iron ball at this very moment. The water current could only barely push her forward a few inches. That's right. She didn't want to be like a ball and be knocked down the waterfall by the water current and smash into the pool below. That would be too ugly, and she wouldn't have any face in front of everyone. As she thought this, it was as if this fellow grew on top of the waterfall. No matter how the water current battered her, she just couldn't go down. At the same time, the land whale poked its head out of the water and roared excitedly. It's omnipotent little Master Silver. Puff! The land whale spat out a mouthful of water. The little stoic, who was originally blocking the waterfall's exit, was spat out by the land whale and rolled down. Baby Emo called out mommy, hugged his adoptive father, and rolled down together with the land whale at an extremely fast speed. Emolien, she simply couldn't bear to watch. The land whale was dumbfounded, and it roared at the sky in grief and indignation. Dragging its short legs, it hastily crawled to the waterfall's exit. It was then washed down by the water current. Everyone tumbled down from its back, wailing and shrieking. It looked like such a huge monster was about to crash into the pool. A certain stoic floating in the eggshell reached out a small fist and waved it forcefully. The land whale turned into a streak of light and abruptly disappeared in front of her. Everyone tumbled into the pool one after another like rolling earth balls. One by one, they crawled and flopped in the water. The big-bellied man said in horror, "It's over, it's over, it's over. I don't know how to swim. I don't know how to swim." The other young woman also turned pale with fright. I don't know how to swim either, Arbor expressionlessly looked at this group of drama queens and suddenly said, "Can you all stand up first before competing?" The big-bellied man hastily stood up, and then laughed awkwardly. This pool of water only reached his chest, so it was not enough to drown him. Haha. The others also laughed foolishly, as if they were trying to cover it up. Everyone stood up. Some of them had already removed their defensive shields. After all, not everyone could be like Jojo, who could wear an eggshell to protect himself for a long time. Jojo swayed in the water, her small eyes sweeping the surroundings. "Did you see that? The barrier is on top of the mountain. You have to climb up and knock down that barrier. Only then can you be considered to have unlocked the second layer." To be honest, once the second barrier was broken, who knew what kind of misfortune awaited them? It was possible that he would be in the water or in the fire. He weeping cupped his hands and said, "We were washed down from the opposite waterfall. Now it seems to be a little difficult to climb up the mountain wall. With the yellow vine rope, of course it won't be difficult." Someone took out the rope that everyone had used earlier from his inner world. The big-bellied man nodded. "The environment here is strange. It seems like only the yellow vine rope can help us get up and down. Listen, I think there's a sound," Arbor said expressionlessly. "When we broke through the first array core, we killed a sacred guardian beast." Chapter 5648. So you mean that the guardian beast of the second array core is here? Everyone looked at each other, only to see Madame Emo silently throw a few defensive talismans on herself. Then, she flicked hundreds of defensive talismans onto young Master Emo and her teammates. "Get ready." Everyone couldn't help but look up at the sky speechlessly. When they heard Madame Emo say the word "get ready" expressionlessly, they had the urge to cry. "Get ready, my ass. She was always getting ready to be unlucky. It's here." A frying pan suddenly appeared in Sir Jojo's hand. Everyone took a closer look. Wasn't this the frying pan that young Master Emo used to block the lightning? Wei-Ping and the others couldn't help but twitch their mouths. When they looked up again, their faces were distorted. One of them pointed at the dense mass of something in the sky. He was so shocked that his jaw almost dropped. "Didn't you say that the first array core would only encounter one holy beast? Why was there a group of them here? You can't play like this." Sir Jojo threw the frying pan out of the defensive barrier and blocked the top of his head. The frying pan suddenly expanded to several meters in length and width, enveloping Emolien and the others in it. Chirp chirp, a noise came from the sky, accompanied by the sound of the wind. A large flock of blackbirds smashed into the frying pan, making dong 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 sounds. The frying pan was indestructible. It could even block the lightning of the heavenly Tao. Naturally, it wouldn't be a problem for it to block a flock of birds. It was the flock of birds that were banging on the pot, occasionally accompanied by a creaking sound. It was really ear-piercing and unpleasant. And the people of the holy region, who didn't have the frying pan to block it, suffered. They hurriedly opened their defensive barriers. Under the fierce attack of the blackbirds, they cried out in panic. This flock of birds was too terrifying. Although this flock of little black birds was only the size of a baby's fist, their beaks were curved downwards like sharp knives. Bang! 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 The continuous smashing of the defensive barrier made the cultivators inside so anxious that they were about to piss their pants. If these black birds continued to stare at their defensive barriers, no one would be able to withstand it in less than half an hour. They would all suffer. Quickly think of a way. A female cultivator couldn't help but cry out. She originally wanted to come to the Holy Palace to pick up equipment, but in the end, she didn't get any benefits. She was about to be seriously injured and die here. It really made her feel indignant. Madam Mo, several cultivators screamed. Sir Jojo threw out a bunch of defensive talismans and circled around the people of the holy region. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. They formed a defensive rune array and temporarily blocked the ferocious attacks of the black birds. A female cultivator couldn't help but cry. This can't go to continue. Once the talisman power in the defensive talisman formation is consumed, it will not be able to resist the attack of the flock of birds. What are you guys waiting for? When there are defensive array glyphs, attack the flock of birds as much as possible. As soon as little Tai Sui finished speaking, everyone hurriedly took action. They each controlled their sacred power and shot the black birds from a distance. Are these black birds all saint-level beasts? No. Arbor shook his head. The cultivators finally heaved a sigh of relief, but Arbor continued. It's a group of divine beasts. Everyone. Chapter 5649. One sacred beast versus a flock of divine beasts. Who would win and who would lose? Who would win and who would lose? They really didn't freaking know. This Alexander's life was filled with passion and ripples everywhere. Everyone gritted their teeth and fought with all their might against the flock of black birds swooping down from the sky. Those fist-sized black birds soon piled up on the ground in a densely packed circle, causing one's scalp to tingle. Thankfully, Sir Jojo sat firmly inside the eggshell defensive barrier from beginning to end and didn't come into contact with those disgusting things. She glanced at her son from the corner of her eyes. She saw that the little fellow didn't have the slightest bit of shock or fear on his face. He was especially serious as he scrutinized those black bird corpses outside the defensive barrier. Who knew what he was fiddling with as he squatted down? This child truly didn't know what fear was at all. He was bold yet meticulous, completely inheriting Sir Jojo's fine tradition. How wonderful! Son, what are you doing? Arbor was suddenly startled and couldn't resist asking. Her precious son was currently taking out a small jar of something from his inner world and smearing it on his face and hands. Hearing his mother calling him, the little fellow turned his pitch-black face and grinned at her. Mother, I found a way to break it. Foster father, wait for me. Duanyu jumped in fright when he saw him opening the defensive barrier and jumping out. He reached out to grab him without thinking. What are you doing? Don't worry, I'll be fine. The little dumpling jumped out and completely escaped the range of the frying pan. Everyone involuntarily jumped in fright. Although Arbor knew that her son was extremely skilled and nothing would happen to him, her heart still couldn't help but jump fiercely. The little fellow was currently standing outside the defensive talisman matrix in front of everyone. He was completely naked and didn't activate any defenses. He weeping jumped in fright and hastily shouted, "Child, hurry and go back." A flock of black birds was charging towards their talisman matrix. How could they not attack a completely naked child when they suddenly saw him? Yet this was the truth. When that flock of black birds saw Mo Baobao standing there, they all vigorously flapped their wings and distanced themselves from this fellow. If black birds could roll their eyes, they would definitely roll their eyes at Mo Baobao 100 times in disdain. Gigi. A black bird flew in front of Xiao Tuanzi, as if its body had not yet developed, flying in a crooked and hurried manner. They flapped their wings vigorously and scattered away from Baby Mo's side at a strange speed. The little guy patted the dirt off his face and hands, then turned to the group of uncles and said proudly, "Look, little Tuanzi has never picked up trash. This was a treasure." If they smeared it on their bodies, they would be able to effectively prevent mosquitoes from biting them. Apui, they would be able to prevent black birds from attacking them. You stink from head to toe. The little stoic pinched her nose in disdain. Don't poke your adoptive father anymore. Xiao Tuanzi blinked his watery phoenix eyes and pounced on his father in an aggrieved manner. "Daddy, Mommy dislikes Bao Bao." His father didn't know whether to accept it or not. A piece of hot potato suddenly jumped onto his lap and hugged his thigh. The little mud on its face kept rubbing against his father's leg. "Daddy, carry me." "Go to your adoptive father's side and carry him." Emo Lian's handsome face darkened. Her son was truly extraordinarily smelly. "Daddy, go find your rotten peach blossom uncle." Disdain, utter disdain. Chapter 5650. Mother, father dislikes little fur ball. Baby Emo immediately complained. Emo Lian hooked the little thing with her long leg and sent it to Divine Peach Blossom. Carrying the smelly little treasure, Hu Shurchen didn't know whether to throw it away or not. His handsome face immediately turned a little green. "You're too smelly, little fur ball." "Am I?" The little guy even raised his sleeve and sniffed it. Blinking his eyes, he reached out and touched his face. "Uncle Peach Blossom, could it be that what I dug earlier wasn't soil, but bird droppings?" The little guy jumped into Divine Peach Blossom's arms and rubbed against his clothes. Hu Shurchen was a little petrified. The hand holding the little guy stiffened. Emo Lian chuckled and nodded. "It seems very possible. Or maybe there was bird droppings mixed in with the soil you dug." Lord Jojo felt that Jojo's lotus was probably the truth. Thus, he pinched his nose and called out, "Son, send that jar of soil to the uncles and aunties over there. Let them all apply it." "Okay." Baby Emo looked at his mother with sparkling eyes. "Mother, do you want some?" "No need. I thank your whole family. It's so smelly." "Son, you can keep it for yourself and slowly enjoy it." "Strange, it wasn't so smelly when I dug it up." The little guy muttered as he got down from rotten peach blossom. His short legs thumped as he walked towards the people of the sanctuary. Perhaps it was because it had been sealed in the jar for too long, so the smell had spread out. "Uncles and aunties, for you to use." Baby Emo happily raised the jar in his hand high and handed it to the stiff-faced big-bellied man. "No need to panic. I still have a few more jars after you use it up. There will definitely be enough." "Thank you, little Gongzi." The big-bellied man practically forced those words out from between his teeth. "Thank your whole family, little Gongzi." "You're welcome." The child nodded seriously. "Just remember to owe me a favor. My mother said that it's impolite not to reciprocate. I believe that you are all adults now. You will definitely keep your promises." Everyone in the sanctuary was speechless. Why did he not want to talk to this brat? "Little brat, can you stay away from us? I really don't want you to continue wasting my money." But strangely enough, the jar of bird feces mixed with the soil was very useful. While the little guy was talking to them, not a single black bird swooped down to attack them. It was obvious that they hated the smell. "Hurry up and apply it." The little fellow looked at them encouragingly. "You're all adults, so you should know better than me. The stench compared to your life is more important. As long as we're alive, what's the point of our reputation? If we lose our lives, then we'll truly lose everything." Everyone was dumbfounded and hurriedly opened the jar. They scrambled to get rid of the soil and feces inside and worked hard to smear it on themselves. "Please don't say any more. Ancestor, please leave." Baby Emo was a little gloomy. Separated by his mother's eggshell cover, he squatted by his mother's feet and said softly, "They don't like to talk to me. She didn't even talk to me for 3 sentences before ignoring me." His mother encouraged him through the cover. "Son, don't be discouraged. Those who didn't like to talk to mother all died later on." Everyone. Chapter 5651. The others didn't know how to respond to the little stoic's words. In the end, they looked at each other and hastened to smear mud and bird droppings on their faces and hands. After everyone smeared it, the only benefit was probably this. Everyone was stinky, and their nostrils were filled with that smell, so no one would dislike anyone else. The flock of black birds was sent flying by the stench and scattered far into the horizon in a dense pile. But they didn't dare to come down. The little stoic simply removed the eggshell on her body and expressionlessly looked at everyone. She clenched her small fists. "Go! Why didn't they do it?" Everyone felt that this situation was like forcing a duck onto a perch. This Madame Emo was truly talented at commanding. With one order, Everyone began to dawdle and move. They took the yellow vine rope and flung it up at top speed. Once, twice, thrice the big-bellied man wiped his sweat and looked awkwardly at this little madam. Madam M.O., I don't think I can throw it up. Arbor was about to cry from their stupidity. Thankfully, her teammates back then weren't these people, or else she would definitely go crazy. Oh no, she might get angry and beat them up first. Without using a bit of holy power, could this rope be thrown up to such a high mountain peak? A bunch of pig brains. She tied 2 seeds to one end of the rope and swiftly flung it up the mountain peak. Thus, the rope wound around 2 wildly growing trees and stood firmly on the mountain peak. The long yellow vine rope then obediently drooped down. The rope was long enough, so even if it was twice as high, it would still be enough. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but sigh in relief. Then, they filed forward and swiftly climbed up the yellow vine rope to the mountain peak. They stood on this mountain peak and looked over. They could see the waterfall that had tragically washed their group into the deep pool earlier. The waterfall splashed with sparkling water, and the chilly air assaulted their faces. At this time, Arbor and Molien and the others also climbed up the yellow vine rope. After swiftly retrieving the rope and stuffing it into her inner world, Arbor expressionlessly looked back at everyone. Go! This Madame Emma was really stingy. Look at how swift she was at putting things away. He must have gotten used to it in the past. Attack! Arbor gave the order, and the group of miserable sacred domain people very consciously rushed forward. There was no order in the team. Everyone exerted their strength, and exerted a lot of effort. Bang 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 they pounded the barrier fiercely. Arbor led Master Dongfang and the others to stand by the side and watch for a long time. He shook his head and said, "You guys are getting worse and worse." Everyone was speechless. Why don't you go up instead of spouting nonsense? Everyone only dared to grumble in their hearts. In reality, he didn't dare to say it out loud. If he said that, he would definitely be scolded. There was no need to think too much about it. Young Madam would definitely say, "You guys only contributed a little. It was my holy power pearl that tore open a gap in the barrier." Everyone gritted their teeth and steeled their hearts, continuing to hack and chisel. Finally, a small crack appeared on the barrier. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief and exclaimed, "Quick, Madame M.O., the crack has appeared." Without waiting for these people to say anything, Arbor flicked his finger, and a sacred power orb rolled over. Just as the sacred power orb exploded with a huge burst of energy, a huge mushroom cloud appeared in midair. A figure was kicked out of the void by someone and fell to the ground with a loud ouch. He almost broke his front teeth from the fall. Chapter 56-52. The little old man stood up and pointed at the figure that appeared in midair, shouting angrily, "Qin Nitian, you little bastard. You even dare to hit Tian Dao. You're really not a good thing." Ouch. A dazzling whip of light was about to hit the little old man's chest. The old man was agile and nimble. His whole body was close to the ground as he rolled over to avoid the attack. Although he was in a sorry state, he did not hit the old man. The heavenly Dao was both furious and pleased. He got up from the ground and stomped his feet as he snorted. "Little bastard, do you think you can beat me?" Pa! A whip of light landed heavily on the old man's butt. The little old man's face turned green. He jumped up and shouted angrily, You bastard, you really dare to hit me." Everyone looked on in confusion. They subconsciously gathered their small bodies, leaving a wide open space in front of them. At this time, everyone had already run out of the second barrier. In front of them was a large open space. There was no more yellow sand wreaking havoc. Everyone could see it very clearly. In midair, the woman in the red dress was holding a whip of white light. She was very ruthless. With one whip, Tian Dao jumped up high. Dancing and baring his teeth, he shouted, "Qin Nitian, you little bastard. You really want to defy the heavens?" Qin Nitian smiled. "It's not like this is the first time, you know. I'm used to defying the heavens." "Apui." Tian Dao touched his old waist, his face full of anger. "Let me tell you, you have to stop immediately. When this old man really makes his move, you won't be able to ouch my mother." Tian Dao was slapped down by a giant palm made of light elements. His head hit the ground, he crawled on the ground, his two weak and thin arms moving. Ouch, ouch. Everyone. This was an existence that completely subverted everyone's senses. What kind of person was Tian Dao? He was an existence that the entire sacred region could not shake. But at this time, seeing Tian Dao lying on the ground being beaten, they felt that it was somewhat out of their imagination. The visual shock was not ordinary. Qin Nitian, stop fighting, stop fighting. I'm telling you, you really need to change that little temper of yours. Huh? Yes, only an old man like me can stand you. Oh, don't hit me. Don't hit me. Yes, your man can't stand you. Damn Qin Nitian, you really hit my head. Fine, I promise you, can I? Stop. Against the sky stopped and hovered in midair, looking down at him. At this time, a female cultivator couldn't help but cry out. Your Excellency, why can you fly? Yes, this place was affected by the law of gravity, so it was impossible to fly. Therefore, they had to rely on the yellow vine rope to climb up and down the mountain. How can Qin Nitian be the same as you guys? Tian Dao retorted. Ouch. He covered his head and got up from the ground. Okay, stop hitting me. I'll adjust the difficulty to a lower level and let them train in the normal mode. Everyone wanted to cry, but no tears came out. So their previous guess was completely correct? The heavenly axiom, that old bastard, had really cheated them by increasing the difficulty of the Sacred Palace's trial. Chapter 56-53. At this moment, everyone couldn't help but want to howl a few times. Why? Heavens and earth. What was wrong with Tian Dao? Why did he have to trick them? What the hell was going on? Was there a need for this? What was the benefit of tricking them like this? Thinking about this, the straightforward female cultivator couldn't help but ask. Elder Tian Dao, why did you raise the difficulty this year when nothing went wrong in the Sacred Palace every year? Right. Everyone nodded and couldn't help but look at the female cultivator, as if they were looking at a brave warrior. A woman who dared to question the evil forces was more manly than all the men here. Tian Dao couldn't help but retort. I can do whatever I want. Do I need to explain to you little cultivators? The truth is, this old man didn't freaking want to scam you guys. The only people I wanted to scam from beginning to end were Xiaomu's family of 3. You guys were merely incidental humph. The female cultivator didn't agree. Elder Tian Dao, if that's the case, then you're in the wrong. You increased the difficulty of the trial for no reason, making it difficult for us. Tian Dao couldn't help but get angry and glared at the female cultivator. What do you mean? Are you questioning my decision? Whatever mode I want to give you guys have to accept it. That's not how it is. It's normal mode every year. But you gave us 10 times the difficulty mode this year. This doesn't seem right. There has to be a reason. The reason is that this guy wants to trick my nephew's family. You guys are just being tricked. The female cultivator cupped her hands towards Qin Nitian. Thank you for your advice, Elder. Qin Nitian's mouth twitched. He couldn't help but look at this female cultivator. She had a long ponytail and was in good spirits. She was expressionless, and the corners of her mouth were slightly down. Her dark eyes were filled with emotions of disagreement towards Tian Dao. Elder Tian Dao, if that's the case, you wanted to trick people but failed. In the end, you dragged us innocent people down with you. Everyone, this female warrior, you said what most people didn't dare to say. You're too strong. Lord Jojo glanced at her, then looked at Tian Dao. The female cultivator's voice was loud and clear as she said, compensate me. Emolien, Duan Yu, and the others couldn't help twitching their mouths. Everyone was speechless. Arbor? Strange, this female cultivator's way of doing things seemed a little familiar. It was inexplicably to her liking. Compensate? The heavenly Dao actually stuttered a little. He pointed at the female cultivator, and was so angry that smoke came out of his nostrils. You actually asked the heavenly Dao to compensate you? Disgraceful. Damn it. No matter what, he would not compensate her today. If he really compensated her, what kind of person would he be? Of course we have to compensate. The stern-faced female cultivator was still expressionless. and her voice was also very stiff. However, she was very polite. Her words were sonorous and forceful, and her articulation was very clear. If it weren't for the heavenly Tao, you wouldn't have implicated us ordinary citizens of the holy region when you wanted to trap Madame Mo's family of 3. After we entered the holy palace, how much time and energy have we wasted? You should also know. Chapter 56-54. These are all unnecessary costs of time. You should be very clear that for us cultivators, time is precious. Time is equivalent to money, materials, and life. Only with sufficient time can we continue to move forward. Advancing through hardships requires time. And striving to improve also requires time. Doing anything requires time. And now you're wasting a lot of our time, wasting our lives. In this sacred palace, from the first step we took until now, we haven't found any materials, and we haven't obtained anything. Our lives have been wasted in this sacred training ground. The female cultivator gave an impassioned speech, and her speech was extremely fast, becoming more and more intense. Everyone's faces were flushed as they watched her speak faster and faster. And the more she spoke, the more passionate she became. One after another, they raised their necks, raised their heads, and puffed out their chests, holding back the words they wanted to say. Since that's the case, it's somewhat unreasonable not to compensate. After all of this was caused by you, Senior. Compensating is a matter of course. If you don't, then you're extremely shameless. Senior Heavenly Tao, since you're the Heavenly Tao, you have to set an example. You mustn't chill the hearts of us cultivators. After the declarative conclusion, the scene was silent. Everyone looked at each other in dismay, and their gazes focused on Heavenly Tao's flushed old face. He might have been a little stupefied by the female cultivator's rebuke. When she was speaking, he wanted to interject several times, but each time, he was interrupted by me. You fuck. Silently ended. This guy couldn't spit out a complete rebuttal sentence at all. Now he might be about to explode. Just at this moment, the entire scene was silent. Lord Jojo suddenly raised his small hand and expressionlessly applauded the female cultivator. Everyone, Feng Chongqing and the others, fiercely stifled their laughter, and one after another, they coughed lightly to cover up their laughter. Wow! Baby Mo opened his small mouth wide and followed his mother to clap hard. This auntie completely said what my mother wanted to say. This was really great. This way, the stoic mother didn't have to say so much. Every time he saw the stoic mother's taut face and say a lot, Baby Mo was always worried that his mother would choke on her saliva. After all, from what his father and adoptive father said, his mother didn't like to talk much since she was young. The Heavenly Tao held back for a long time. Bastard! Damn it, this bunch of people. When did they start to stand on the side of Mo Brat and his family? How despicable. They actually joined forces to deal with him, the Heavenly Tao Elder. He would definitely give them a taste of their own medicine. Slap. A whip of light landed on his butt. Qin Nitian impatiently urged, "Hurry up and change, stop messing with my nephew's family." I'm telling you, old ghost, if you continue to make things difficult for my child, I won't let you off. Tiandao rubbed his butt angrily and glared at Arbor. Stupid girl, you can't beat me. So you bring the adults out to look for trouble. Sir Jojo looked at him expressionlessly. Tiandao, you'd better compensate us with some god-level and above refining materials and herbs. You didn't do the right thing. As the Heavenly Tao, since you've done such a thing, it's not like we can't forgive you after the compensation is paid. Yes, Madame Mo is right. I hope that Elder Heavenly Tao will grant my wish. This female cultivator, this one is Zhang Jing. Greetings. Chapter 56-55. This female cultivator Zhang and Madame Mo's words are very reasonable. Heavenly Tao Elder, it's time for you to express your sincerity. Heavenly Tao. Fuck your grandma. He was flustered and exasperated as he glared at Arbor, then at Qin Nitian, who was glaring at them. He looked around. How pitiful. None of the people here were on Heavenly Tao Elder's side. Why? Why was it like this? The heavens were unfair. These despicable people, they were all on the same side as Arbor, that stinky lass. Well, while this old man was so angry, so angry, so angry, the old man thumped his chest and stomped his feet. Scram! After drinking it in one gulp, everyone felt as if they were being pulled up by a suction force. Following the strong suction force, they were sucked into the air and disappeared into a passage in the air. When his figure landed again, Yi Zichen was stunned. Everyone rolled onto a soft patch of grass, and a fragrant smell wafted into their noses. Baby Emo couldn't help but roll on the grass and excitedly patted the grass. Mother, mother, we're out. Everyone couldn't help but cry tears of joy as they hugged each other. Thank the heavens, thank the earth, thank the common people, thank all living beings. They finally returned to the normal training mode of the sacred palace. Thank you. Yes, they finally came out of the 9-palace illusion array. Now, in front of them was the grass at the entrance of the sacred palace. But at this time, they had already entered the sacred palace. Stepping on the flowers and grass in the palace, all they could smell was a strange fragrance. The compensation is here. Another female cultivator beside Zhang Jing couldn't help but cheer as she pointed to the front. Everyone looked over, their eyes almost popping out of their sockets. At this moment, many precious medicinal herbs were waving at them from the front. There were no cheating sacred beasts, no extremely aggressive divine beasts and black birds, no barriers that they didn't need to expend all their strength to attack. While what appeared in front of them was a patch of fragrant, green medicinal herbs. Joy. So much so that everyone immediately ran towards the pile of herbs. Everyone was chanting in their hearts. Not an illusion, not an illusion, not an illusion. Ow! It really wasn't an illusion. Baby Emo had already changed into a clean set of clothes. He sat in his father's arms and asked in confusion, "What's wrong with these aunties and uncles? Why did they all rush towards the same herbal field?" Looking at the growth of the herbs, it was the most ordinary heaven-grade herb area. The little fellow pursed his lips. "Why are you so blind? What's so good about snatching heaven-tier medicinal herbs?" The little stoic coughed lightly. "They're going to snatch the heaven-rank medicinal herbs needed to refine fasting pills." "Fasting pill?" Little child exclaimed, his face filled with disbelief as he looked at the group of fools. Those who could enter the sacred palace to gain experience were at least above the spiritual elder realm. They were all in the transcendent realm. So why would they need something like the fasting pill? For their descendants. Emo Lien explained, "It's little friends like you. They need to eat fasting pills." Baby Emo was dumbfounded. "Do you need it?" Emo Lien couldn't help but retort. "You don't need other people's needs." This son looked smart, but in reality he was stupid. He thought that everyone was like him, busying themselves with cultivation in their mother's womb. Chapter 56-56. At that time he was worried about his daughter-in-law, but he didn't expect her to give birth so smoothly. He was the most unlucky one. Ever since this son of his was born, the heavenly Tao always liked to show up and strike him. What a fucking trap. Emo Lien couldn't help but sigh at the thought of this. Baby Emo hung in his arms and moved his little body with joy. "Daddy, I saw a lot of divine-grade medicinal herbs over there. Although the 100-herb garden doesn't lack them. But let's not waste them. I'll go over and pick some, okay?" Emo Lien nodded. She knew that the little guy couldn't stay put at all. She put him on the ground and patted his little head. "Don't run too far." Baby Emo skipped away happily. He took out a small sickle from his inner world and carried his basket on his back. Everyone couldn't help but laugh. This guy was just like his mother, a scammer. He carried the basket on his back for show. But in reality, the herbs were directly sent to the star domain for Chiu Chiu to distribute to his clones. In the eyes of the big-bellied man, he waping, and the rest, the heavenly Tao's compensation was too generous. But Arbor didn't like these herbs. Anyway, she had them in her 100-herb garden, so she couldn't be bothered to do it. As for her son, this little guy couldn't stop. If he liked to be busy, then be busy. Anyway, at his age, it was the time to combine practice and theory. He should go pick more herbs and distinguish the medicinal properties of various herbs. Otherwise, when he needed to use them in the future, he would hate himself for being shallow. Emo Baobao squatted alone in a god-ranked medicinal herb region, happily harvesting the various medicinal herbs. Zhang Jing and the rest, on the other hand, collected all the ingredients for making the fasting pill in the heaven-level herb area. The big-bellied man was obviously a little embarrassed. He even ran over and asked Arbor shyly, "Madam Mo, aren't you going to pick them? If you also want the ingredients for the fasting pill, we can share some with everyone." "Thank you. My heaven-level herbs have piled up in countless warehouses in the star domain. There are also more than 10 baskets of fasting pills piled up in the warehouse. They were all made by that troublesome son of mine." Madame Mo shook her head expressionlessly. "Just take it." Everyone was overjoyed and nodded repeatedly. They even praised Madame Mo for being magnanimous and a good person in their hearts. Young Master Mo was really lucky to be able to marry a woman like Madame Mo. If Madame Mo knew what these people were thinking, she would definitely chuckle. "You guys are really thinking too much." She just looked down on these heaven-grade materials. She wasn't someone with noble character, unquestionable integrity, magnanimity, or anything like that. These words really shouldn't be used on her. Everyone spread out and continued to harvest medicinal herbs for quite a while. Their faces were all glowing from harvesting medicinal herbs, and they had earned so much that their inner worlds were a bit cramped. Only then did they stop and run back to Qiaomu and the others with a grin. At the same time, a noise came from the door. Everyone looked up and saw the Western Master leading a large group of people. His expression was extremely ugly as he rushed over. When he saw that almost all the medicinal herbs on the lawn had been picked, his face turned dark. "Master Dongfang, you've gone too far. Why didn't you leave some soup for your brothers to drink?" The Western Master's face was cold as he said angrily, "Look at this herb area. What has become of it?" Chapter 56-57. The group of cultivators behind the Western Master were also filled with righteous indignation as they glared angrily at the crowd. These people were too shameless. Such a large area of medicinal herbs had actually been picked clean, not even leaving behind a single dregs. How could everyone endure this? He Wei Ping and the others looked at each other and silently gathered around young Master Mo and Madame Mo. The Western Master led more than 100 people. At this moment, they were all standing across the lawn, glaring at them covetously. In such a holy land for training, everything depended on one's fists. Perhaps the Western Master would fly into a rage and pounce on them together with the people around him, forcing them to hand over the medicinal herbs they had picked earlier. That wasn't impossible. He Wei Ping, Zhang Jing, and the other cultivators were all looking at the Western Master and the group of people he brought with him warily. The Western Master chuckled at the Eastern Master with a fake smile. "Brother Dongfang, this is a little unreasonable." Without waiting for Master Dongfang to speak, a childish voice spoke up. "What's there to be embarrassed about? First come, first served. This is the rule of the training. There's nothing you can do even if you're envious and jealous. After all, who asked you to be half a beat late?" The Western Master's face darkened as he shouted sternly, "Who is it? Step forward." Baby Mo hugged his father's neck and cried out angrily, "Daddy, he's being fierce to little Tuanzi." Mo Lian raised his hand, and a heavy wave of sacred energy swept across. The Western Master was shocked and hurriedly dodged to the side. However, it was already too late. His entire body was hit by the thick holy power on his shoulder. He flipped twice in the air to disperse the power. Even so, his body could not help but tremble twice, and he took more than 10 steps back. The Eastern Master's eyes flashed slightly, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a faint smile. "Brother Western Master, why are you always so impatient?" "It's useless to be so impatient." The Eastern Master stood with his hands behind his back and looked at the Western Master contemptuously. "If you're willing to bet, you must be willing to admit defeat. I feel that little friend Mo is right. Since all of you were late, then it's inevitable that the good stuff would be taken away." The Western Master's face darkened. He clenched his fists tightly, and the veins on the back of his hands bulged. It was obvious that he was in a terrible mood. However, what could he do now? If he stayed here, other than being insulted by others, there was nothing else he could do. He couldn't beat that powerful young Master Mo, Master Dongfang. This cunning old fox. actually found young Master Mo to be his backer from the very beginning. It was simply hateful. Let's go. The Western Master flicked his sleeves and turned to leave. Master Dongfang couldn't help but laugh as he spoke. Brother Dongfang, how did you guys get here? Have you ever experienced the 9 Palaces illusion formation? The Western Master did not want to waste his breath on Dongfang Yubao. He only sneered. What does it have to do with you? I'm just asking out of curiosity, Dongfang Yuzhu said with a smile. Brother Dongfang, if you don't want to tell me, that's fine too. The Western Master had a belly full of anger. How could he be happy to waste his breath on Dongfang Yuzhu? Just as he was about to leave, he heard an enchanting laughter. Oh, Brother Dongfang, you're here too. Brother Dongfang, everyone's here. The Western Master's face darkened even more. He did not even need to turn around to know who had come. Chapter 56-58. The Master of the South and the Master of the North came together with their men. More than 800 people gathered again. They all felt a little strange and looked at each other. Oh my God, such a big herb field. Brother West, did you bring your men to pick all the herbs? The Master of the South cried out and covered her mouth with a handkerchief. The Master of the West's face darkened. Do you think it's possible? I just arrived a little earlier than you. As they spoke, a mechanical voice came from the sky. There are still 24 hours before the sacred palace closes. In the future, every 2 hours will be notified. I will now announce the latest round of the luck ranking list. First place, Mo Xiao. Second place, Zhang Jing. Third place, Master of the East. Fourth place, Arbor and her husband looked at each other expressionlessly. Just now, they didn't join in the fun to pick the herbs. On the luck ranking list, they were definitely at the bottom. But it didn't matter. If their family of 3 occupied the top 3 rankings, would that old fellow, the Way of the Heavens, kick up a fuss again and give them another hell mode experience? The Master of the West's face twitched and his gaze fell on Mo Xiao. This must be our little friend Mo Xiao. Baby Mo cupped his little hands with a serious face. Old friend, I've made a fool of myself. I'm just a little luckier than you. Don't be discouraged. Keep working hard. You can do it. Everyone. They really wanted to slap this child. Listening to this child's words made their balls hurt. Of course, they didn't dare to slap him. If they really did, the adults around that child weren't to be trifled with. The Master of the West was so angry that his face twitched. He put on a fake smile and pointed to the front. There's not much time left. Everyone will make a move first. Who would be happy to continue talking nonsense with them? Anyway, it wasn't realistic to snatch the herbs back. If they really fought, it would be a waste of time and energy. Maybe after the fight, the Sacred Palace experience would also be over. If they only managed to snatch a few herbs, the Master of the West would really cry to death. After all, his goal this time was still that supreme treasure. When the Western Master thought of this, he suddenly felt that he was crazy. Why was he wasting time with these people? Let's go to the main palace. The West Imperial Master shouted. Then he led his people away. Now that the Sacred Palace's normal mode had been activated, those who had come here before began to familiarize themselves with the place. As long as they passed through the lawn and entered the front hall to the middle hall, they would soon reach the main hall that the Western Master had mentioned. He Weiping took a few steps forward and said to Arbor, Madam Mo, we know the way. Let's go together. Arbor nodded and didn't refuse the help. Rather than wandering around aimlessly, he might as well get someone to lead the way. Master Dongfang Yu also smiled and said, It's not far from there. The main hall is where the resources are gathered. Then shouldn't we hurry up? Everlasting Blade could not help but ask. After all, the Western Master, the Southern Master, and the others had already gone over. If they didn't chase after him now, they would be one step behind. Arbor nodded and waved his hand. All right, let's go. Chapter 56-59. Actually, Sir Jojo didn't really care about those resources. But since everyone was so excited, it wouldn't be good to dampen their spirits. With that thought, the little stoic followed Master Dongfang, who was leading the way. Didn't you say you were looking for Crimson Dawn? Yes. Master Dongfang nodded. Do you have a clue? I have a little clue. Master Dongfang replied with a smile. But I come to the Holy Palace to search every year, and encounter some trouble every year. The trouble must be brought by other masters, so Arbor didn't ask and just nodded. Then I hope you can find your wife's Crimson Dawn this year. Thank you for your kind words, Madame Mo. Master Dongfang nodded with a smile. If nothing unexpected happens, Crimson Dawn should also be preserved in the main hall. After all, it has the value of being preserved in the main hall. Master Dongfang seemed to be thinking of his wife, and his voice slowly lowered. Arbor wasn't someone who knew how to comfort others, so he didn't say anything after glancing at him. Master Dongfang, He Weiping, and the others led Emolian, Arbor, and the others forward for a while and pointed ahead. The front hall is there. There are countless forks in the road from here. Since everyone is fated to be together, let's go forward together. Zhang Jing and the others also had the same idea and nodded repeatedly. Excellent. Their intuition told them that they would definitely benefit greatly if they could move together with Madame Mo and the others. Although this little madam was indeed a bit deceitful in the beginning, she was powerful. She threw away a rare item like the Holy Power Bead without any hesitation. It was obvious how powerful this madam was. Please. Master Dongfang raised his hand forward. The group followed him to the front hall in a single file. Entering the front hall was as easy as blowing off dust, and the front hall door opened with a push. No one needed to exert any effort at all. Is the front hall so easy to enter? Dao Wuji raised his eyebrows and asked. Your Excellency doesn't know, Master Dongfang said with a smile. There are countless forks from the front hall to the middle hall, let alone the main hall. It's useless to just enter the front hall. There were also people who wandered around the front hall for dozens of hours, but in the end, they were teleported out with nothing. So don't think that the entrance to the front hall is easy to enter. That's because it's waiting at the back. If you don't pass the test, you might not even be able to touch the door to the main hall. Everyone nodded in agreement with Master Dongfang. Baby Mo lay in Emolian's arms and looked around for a long time. Wait. Emolian was speechless. She lowered her head and glanced at the little fellow. She stopped in the middle of the front hall. This place was completely empty. There were only a few pillars as far as the eye could see. There was really nothing to linger around. Father, put me down. Baby Mo wriggled its small body. Emolian helplessly placed him on the ground. What are you doing? Give me a moment. Baby Mo took out a small shovel from his inner world and walked over to a tile. Under the dumbfounded gazes of the crowd, he began to pry it open. Yes, pry the floor tiles. This little trick was incomparably fast. Every pry was accurate, and within seconds, the entire floor tile was pried open. Emolian raised her hand to cover her face. She really wanted to pretend that she didn't know her own son. After the floor tile was pried open, Baby Mo took out a bag from his inner world and directly put the thing under the floor tile inside. Chapter 5660. He Weiping couldn't help but exclaim, "What is that?" Everyone ran forward and circled around Baby Mo's little figure. Baby Mo's little eyes looked warily at them and hurriedly grabbed the last handful of things into the bag. The bag's mouth suddenly tightened, and he held it tightly in his little paw. The little guy roared in a childish voice, "What do you want to do?" These people all had bright eyes as they looked dumbly at him. They looked like they wanted to get a share of the loot. Not possible. What he picked up was something he wouldn't share with anyone else. Everyone couldn't help but twitch their mouths. Look at this child's gaze. They just went up to take a look out of curiosity. Look at him. He was so wary, covering his little bag with a stinky expression. He really was a stinky baby. Give one to mother. Jojo Darren also walked over curiously and reached out a small hand to his son. Baby Mo jumped to his mother's side and handed over the little bag to his mother. This really was a difference in treatment. Everyone thought speechlessly. Arbor opened the bag and looked. Her eyes lit up. It's cold space sand. As soon as Xiaomu finished speaking, everyone couldn't resist exclaiming all at once. Cold space sand? Is it really cold space sand? TSK, you know what that is? Of course I know. This is a material that forgers use to forge holy artifacts. With the help of this cold space sand, the success rate of forging holy artifacts will be higher. Everyone chattered, but Arbor's attention wasn't on this at all. She was only thinking that this bag of cold space sand could make Lil Cauldron half full. She wondered if the crescent moon on Lil Cauldron's body could be lit up. The mother and son exchanged a knowing look and silently put away the bag of frigid space sand. Turning her head to look, she saw the other Shioja of Sacred Realm were all squatting in front of the tiles and digging. Arbor, Baby Mo? Uncles and aunties, what are you doing? Baby Mo asked with a puzzled expression. Everyone was digging in full swing. Zhang Jing turned to look at the child and said seriously, I'll learn from you. Mo Lian walked up and looked down at his wife. Could it be that the floor tiles below are filled with frigid space sand? What are you thinking about? Xiao Mu brusquely cast her husband a glance. No, there's no frigid void sand. Baby Mo shook his head honestly. There's only one under the tile I dug. There's nothing else. If there was, he would have continued digging. How could he have the chance to benefit others? Then what are they doing? The corner of Everlasting Blade's mouth twitched. He thought to himself that this bunch of people from the sanctuary were pretty unlucky. Of all the things they could do, they just had to follow Mo's family. Along the way, he would probably suffer a lot of blows. Madam Mo, young Master Mo, is there any more frigid void sand here? Master Dongfang couldn't stand it anymore and couldn't help but ask. No. Baby Mo shook his head firmly. Definitely not. Master Dongfang. After a moment of silence, Master Dongfang coughed lightly and took a few steps forward. He said to everyone in a clear voice, Everyone, please listen to me. At this time, everyone was full of enthusiasm. Hearing Master Dongfang's voice, they all stopped and looked over. Chapter 56-61. Master Dongfang secretly twitched the corner of his mouth. He coughed lightly and said seriously, Everyone, I see that everyone has been digging for nearly half an incense's time. Until now we still haven't found anything, right? If we continue digging like this, we will only waste more and more time. Just now, young Master Imo must have been lucky to dig out a small bag of frigid void sand under the tiles in the front hall. Our time is limited. If everyone continues to waste time here, we won't have enough time to enter the main hall later. Everyone think about it. Usually, good things are mostly in the main hall. What do you think? When everyone heard this, they immediately felt that Master Dongfang's words were reasonable. Zhang Jing nodded and immediately stopped digging. She quickly returned to Arbor's side. Master Dongfang was right. If they wasted more than an hour here, even if they dug out a little bit of frigid void sand, it wouldn't be enough to fill the gaps between their teeth. It was better to listen to Master Dongfang's words and hurry to the main hall. He Weiping also calmed down at this time. He nodded and said to the big-bellied man beside him, Brother Fang, let's go over too. Instead of wasting time here, why don't we hurry to the main hall? Yes. Yes. The group of people immediately threw away the half-dug floor tiles in their hands and ran over in unison, gathering around Master Dongfang. Master, we'll listen to you. Master, thank you for reminding us. Otherwise, we would have to do some useless work again. Master Dongfang smiled and nodded at everyone. It's fine. Everyone, then let's set off quickly. The front hall was empty. There was nothing to look at. If Baby Mo hadn't suddenly found frigid void sand hidden under a floor tile, they wouldn't have stopped. They would have already passed by. But speaking of which, that young Master Mo really deserved to be called the person with the best luck. He actually got a god-level refining material just by randomly digging up a tile. It was simply people couldn't be compared to each other. It couldn't be compared. Everyone followed Master Dongfang for a while and stopped in the corridor between the front hall and the middle hall. 3 forks appeared in front of them. Each one looked exactly the same. Everyone stopped and discussed which path to take. Their small eyes frequently looked at Master Dongfang, who was frowning and deep in thought. In my opinion, we should walk in the middle. No. Doesn't the path in the middle look a little darker than the other two? I think we should take the left. Take the right. I don't think we can take any of these paths. They should all be traps. I remember that in the past, there were only 2 paths leading from the front hall to the middle hall. Why are there 3 paths today? The Western Master and the others have already passed by. I wonder which path they took. As he spoke, a loud noise came from the left fork. Not long after, the Western Master's face was extremely dark as he led over 100 people out of the fork. At the same time, on the right side of the fork, the Master of the South and the Master of the North had also brought their people back. Everyone covered their noses with their sleeves and kept waving the turbid air in front of them. The 800 people from the sanctuary gathered once more, exchanging glances with each other. The Southern Master's enchanting red dress was now stained with black clumps of something unknown. It emitted a thick stench, causing the Master of the North and the others to roll their eyes. So smelly. Baby Mo pinched his nose and buried his head in his father's arms. Chapter 56-62. Master Dongfang and the others quickly held back their laughter. If they dared to laugh at this moment, they would definitely become the target of public criticism. Look at how tragic the 2 teams were. The Western Master's sleeve was torn by an unknown object, and the bottom of his pants was also torn. The robe on his body was full of holes, as if it had been bitten by a dog. His entire body was in a low pressure of dark clouds. The Southern Master screamed and asked a water spirit master to quickly spray water on her body. With the spray, her translucent red soft robe stuck to her body. Other than revealing her curves, everything else was exposed for everyone to see. She was so angry that she took out a blanket from her inner world to cover her body while screaming angrily, "Look, look! What are you looking at? Haven't you seen your mother before?" Everyone chuckled as their gazes swept over her body a few times. Compared to the other 2 masters, the Northern Master was considered a luckier person. His clothes were slightly messy during the fight, but other than that he was fine. Everyone looked at each other and couldn't help but envy Master Dongfang and the others who had arrived late. Zhang Jing, He Weiping, and the others were also rejoicing in their hearts. If the child hadn't dug the floor tiles on a whim, they would have been in trouble with him. But it was hard to say. Think about it. The Northern Master and the Southern Master chose the right fork, and the Western Master chose the left. The path in the middle might have been taken by them. Since both the left and right paths were traps, the middle one must be the real one. Just as they were thinking this, they saw the Western Master suddenly shake off the pockmarked robe on his body and throw it to the ground. "Let's go." He led his people and walked directly to the middle path, without saying anything to the others. Seeing this, the Southern Master wrapped himself in a blanket and said with a haggard face, "Northern Master, let's follow." This guy looked as if he had been abused by something. His entire body was wet. There were many water droplets on his hair, and it was still dripping. Arbor looked at them and felt that these people looked really tragic. He Weiping and the others silently gave themselves a thumbs up in their hearts. See, to them, following the right team was such a wonderful thing. So don't be in a hurry. Perhaps the best meal would be left for last. Seeing that the hundreds of people had left, the big-bellied man hurriedly turned to Arbor and the others and said, "Madam Mo, young Master Mo, let's follow them." "Yes, yes. Don't fall far behind them. When the time comes, all the good stuff will be taken away by them." "Yes, yes, yes. Let's hurry up and leave, let's go." The group of people were all talking at once. Just as they were about to move forward, they realized that Madame Mo was looking at them, as if they were idiots. Master Dongfang. Madame Mo, please speak your mind." Baby Mo jumped down from his father's arms. "Wait for me." This sentence sounded strangely familiar. Young Master Mo, are you going to dig the floor tiles again?" The big-bellied man's spirits were lifted. Baby Mo shook his little head and ran to the pillar at the side. He floated up and reached out to press a protruding button, slamming it heavily. Everyone could only hear the sound of ga. He turned his head around in confusion. After a few creaking sounds, a transparent path appeared on the rightmost side of the 3 forked roads. Chapter 56-63. Master Dongfang. Zhang Jing and He Weiping. What were they supposed to say? This kind of overwhelming IQ advantage was not something that could be achieved just because they said so. So the fork in the middle that Master Dongfang and the rest had taken was actually not the right path? Everyone could not help but want to cover their faces with their hands. This was really too strange. Master Dongfang and the rest would probably have to return the way they came in while this was such a sad thing. Thinking about it now, they felt that there was a faint sadness among them. One of the people from the sanctuary coughed softly and could not help but ask in a low voice, "Young Master Mo, how did you know that there was a mechanism up there? Didn't you all look?" Baby Mo looked at them with a puzzled expression. "When I walked in, my eyes and ears were on all sides, and I observed everything. Such an obvious mechanism button, and none of you saw it?" Baby Mo looked at everyone in shock. "Everyone, sorry child, it was uncles and aunties who were blind and held you back." Feng Zhangqing could not help but burst into laughter. The little guy floated up and followed beside his mother, tilting his little head. "Mother, isn't little dumpling very smart?" His mother nodded vigorously, expressing her agreement. "Just like mother." Everyone, fine. If they were boasting, then so be it. This mother and daughter pair were constantly boasting about themselves. Actually, they had already gotten used to it as they listened. Arbor lifted his leg and walked towards the transparent path at the side. "Everyone follow me." Everyone nodded and followed Arbor onto the path. They followed the path forward. The surroundings looked empty, and there was nothing blocking the way. Everyone was able to walk very smoothly. After a while, Wei Ping heaved a sigh of relief. They were finally back on the right path. Ever since they entered the Holy Palace, nothing had happened peacefully along the way. Everyone felt that it wasn't easy for them to walk all the way here. One had to know that there were not so many troublesome things in the Holy Palace in the past. After entering the Sacred Palace, almost everyone had more or less gained something. But this time, from the moment they stepped into the Holy Palace, they had been tricked and tricked and tricked again, and again if female cultivator Zhang had not asked for compensation. At this moment, they might not even be able to obtain those heaven-grade medicinal herbs. Thinking about it this way, compared to the miserable southern and western masters, they were much luckier. "Wait for me for a moment." Baby Mo suddenly spoke, causing everyone to be stunned. "Wait again." Everyone silently took out their hammers and awls from their inner worlds and automatically followed behind Baby Mo. "Young Master Mo Jr., are you digging for something?" "Young Master Mo, is there something you want to pick along the road? We'll help you." These uncles and aunties were inexplicably enthusiastic. Baby Mo looked at them in confusion and moved his small body slightly. "Little dumpling wants to poop." Everyone was speechless. Feng Zhangqing and his party couldn't hold it in for a moment and burst out laughing wildly. Stoic Qiao expressionlessly handed her son into her husband's arms and waved her hand like a boss. "Go ahead, Mo Lian." Was it because fate was playing tricks on people? Ever since he was young, his son had always been rather aloof towards him. His wife had long since handed over this great undertaking to him to manage. Chapter 56-64. Mo Lian accepted her fate and carried her son to the side to poop. Everyone stayed where they were and waited for orders, chatting with each other. Baby Mo had been eating, drinking, and sleeping well since he was young. So in less than 2 minutes, Father Mo carried his son back to meet everyone. Baby Mo held something that looked like a small sunflower in his hand and waved it in front of everyone. "There are quite a few helianthus seeds at the side that can be used to make seasoning. Aren't you going to pick some, Uncle and Auntie? I've already picked a basket full of them." Everyone immediately ran towards the place where he pooped. There was indeed a large field of helianthus seeds nearby. Arbor. His son's luck was a little too heaven-defying. He could pick up a field of helianthus seeds just because he pooped for no reason. What kind of bullshit luck was this? Everyone happily picked more than half of the field, leaving behind a small handful, and then ran back joyfully. Most of the people here were from the eastern region, and only a few were from the western and northern U. At this moment, these western and northern U cultivators couldn't help but want to give themselves a few more thumbs up. Back then, he had really hit the jackpot. That was why he was able to follow such an invincible team. If they had followed their original team, wouldn't they all be unlucky? Thinking of this, these people couldn't help but secretly rejoice in their hearts. At the same time, the Western and Southern U-Masters teams of several hundred people were being attacked and bombarded by inhumane mechanisms in the Middle Fork. More than 10 people were injured before they were able to escape in a sorry state. The Western U-Master's robe was full of holes after being hit by the mechanisms, and his entire person was a little listless. The blanket that the Southern U-Master was originally wrapped in had been thrown on the ground when they were escaping. Although her entire body was dry now, her appearance was even worse than before. Not only was her wet hair stuck to her body, her face was pale, and the skirt below her knees was torn by the mechanisms. She was leaning against the wall, panting heavily, and her entire body was trembling uncontrollably. Damn it! The Western U-Master panted heavily and took out a new set of robes from his inner world. Following the original method, he once again shattered his robe, leaving only his inner robe, and put on the new outer robe. He was on the verge of exploding with rage. Where are Master Dongfang and the others? Hearing this, everyone immediately came back to their senses. That's right, where the fuck is Master Dongfang and the others? Now they were nowhere to be seen outside the fork. However, they didn't meet them when they were on the path in the middle. Logically speaking, they shouldn't be that stupid. We have been defeated by both the left and right paths. Don't tell me that they don't believe in evil and insist on walking the same path as us? A Western region cultivator frowned. Even he did not quite believe the words that came out of his mouth. The Western Master sneered. Impossible. Master Dongfang Yu is an old fox. It's impossible for him to do such a stupid thing. Look around. The Western Master's expression changed slightly. They must have found another way. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone immediately moved to search the vicinity of the 3 forks in the road. No, I don't have it here either. Could it be that these people really entered the left and right forks? Wait, someone suddenly exclaimed. There's a path here. Chapter 56-65. Where? Everyone's spirits couldn't help but be lifted. Fuck, could it be that Master Dongfang and his group had found the correct path? And then they had secretly pulled their own group in? What? The Western Master fiercely pushed away the person in front of him and quickly rushed over. He saw that the cultivator was standing on the right side of the fork. Look. When he sat down as an example, everyone could clearly see that the air where he sat was fluctuating slightly, and a transparent path appeared behind him. If they didn't walk there and sit down or step into the path, they wouldn't be able to see that there was a path here at all. In particular, the 2 sides of the path were completely white. This transparent path could almost be said to have completely blended into the background around them. If this young man hadn't walked here and sat down to rest and noticed something strange, who knew how much time they would have to spend here to find the correct path? Damn it! The Western Master was so angry that his scalp was about to explode. He originally thought that his group was faster than the others and would definitely be the first to arrive at the middle hall. Who knew that they were the ones who were fooled? How hateful! Master Dongfang and his group must have already passed by. Someone couldn't help but exclaim. It's over. They must be the first to arrive. There were only so many things. If the people from the eastern region got more than half, then the remaining things would definitely not be enough to fill the gaps between their teeth. Thinking of this, everyone's mood became even lower. They could only blame themselves for following the Western Master. They were really unlucky to have come all the way here. The Southern Master's expression wasn't very good at this time. Brother Dongfang is really too mean. He clearly knew that we took the wrong path, but he wasn't willing to greet us. Brother Northern, you've always been on good terms with him. Look, in front of benefits, he doesn't even care about you. Isn't that hateful? The Northern Master smiled awkwardly and politely. You can't say that. He led the people from the eastern region, so naturally, he had to consider all aspects of the eastern region's cultivators. Besides, at that time, we had already followed Brother Dongfang into the middle fork. They only found the right path later. so it's impossible for them to take the wrong path to find us. If it were you, Master of the South, you wouldn't be able to do this. To put it bluntly, they were all competitors. How could they give up on the right path and go down the wrong path for the sake of their enemy? That would be hilarious. The Southern Master didn't even feel embarrassed when he said this. Master Nanfong nodded with a fake smile. Brother Beifong is indeed a close friend of Brother Dongfang. Why do the two of you have different paths? The Master of the North sighed and cursed in his heart. He also wanted to go the same way, but he made the wrong decision just now. If he had known earlier, he would have stopped at the fork in the road and simply walked with Brother Dongfang. The Western Master's face darkened. Alright, cut the crap. Now even if he didn't want to, he was still wrong. He had to leave quickly. If you don't leave now, not to mention the meat soup, I don't think even a strand of hair will be left. The Southern Master took out a red veil from her inner world and put it on. She smiled seductively. Let me lead the way. Brother Dongfang, you're always in a hurry to lead me to the wrong place. It's really unbearable. We don't want to waste any more time. Chapter 56-66. The Western Master's face was as black as charcoal, but at this time, he did not continue to fight with the Southern Master. Instead, he silently walked to the side, allowing the Southern Master to lead the people in first. Don't look at how the Southern Master was swaying with every step. His walking speed was actually not slow. After a short while, he led the group to the place where baby Mo pooped. The Western Master's dog nose was very sensitive. He sniffed hard. There is the scent of their activities here. I can feel it too. The Southern Master's face was slightly happy. Could it be that they are still here and have not left? Everyone look around. If we can find Brother Dongfang and the others to gather together and reorganize into a team, it will be fine. The Southern Master giggled. Unexpectedly, the Western Master was the first to speak out against her. Who will lead the team if we reorganize into a team? Who will be the boss? You or me? Or do you think that Dongfang Yu will let you lead his team? That was simply wishful thinking. Take the Western Master for example. He would not bow down to anyone. Dongfang Yu was also not easy to get along with. It was even more impossible for him to let them lead his people. When the time came, who would be able to bear the responsibility if they died or got injured? The Southern Master sneered. I just knew that you old fart like to find trouble with me. Alright, the two masters should stop arguing. Let's first see if there are any figures of Dongfang Yu and the others nearby. They are back. As they spoke, a few hundred Xiuzha ran back, but everyone's expression was a little strange. Why are you so smelly? The Southern Master pinched her nose and shouted at a tall and sturdy male Xiuzha who ran to her side. She subconsciously took a step back, and her expression was a little unsightly. This Xiuzha was called Zhou Ping. He was a married man. He could be considered as her guest. Usually, the two of them hooked up behind his honest wife's back. The Southern Master had always enjoyed the pleasure of seducing her husband. Therefore, most of the guests who entered her room were married men. This could be considered as one of her special fetishes. She admired those women the most. The feeling of being in so much pain that they wished they were dead. The feeling of being unable to get rid of themselves, hee. This Zhou Ping had always lived a good life, and was always able to please her. But at this moment, her body was stinky, which made her feel disgusted. Zhou Ping, on the other hand, had an awkward look on his face. He explained to the Southern Master in a low voice, I'm sorry, Nanner. Just now Zhou Ping stepped on shit just now, ha 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 ha. A wanton and arrogant laughter caused Zhou Ping's expression to change. He didn't need to turn around to know that it was his nemesis Zhao Jia. This Zhao Jia, relying on the fact that he was the Southern Master's new pet, he was somewhat undisciplined and out of control. He did not put him in his eyes all day long. How hateful. Zhao Jia, don't talk nonsense. What nonsense am I spouting? Are you saying that you didn't step on shit? Or did you almost trip over a pile of shit? Ah. The Southern Master immediately took a few steps back and glared at Zhou Ping in disgust. Go clean yourself up first. The smell was simply unbearable. Zhou Ping knew that he was in the wrong, so he quickly retreated. leaving Zhao Jiao alone to stand beside the southern master with a smile. Master, there's nothing around here. We've checked everywhere. There's really nothing here. Other than a pile of shit. There's only a small handful of heavenly sunflower seeds left. Chapter 56-67. Damn it! The Master of the South was so angry that his eyes turned red. The Master of the West also stomped his feet and roared angrily. It must be those people's doing. Leaving behind a pile of poop was probably to mock them. If Baby Mo knew what these uncles and aunties were thinking, he would definitely laugh himself to death. These people were really used to turning everything into a conspiracy. Little Furball really didn't have any other thoughts when he left behind that pile of poop. Chase! We must catch up with them as soon as possible. The Master of the West stomped his feet and roared angrily. These people have been ahead of us all along the way. They must have gotten a lot of good things. If it really didn't work, they could only resort to robbing. A fierce look flashed across the Master of the West's eyes. Master of the North, I know that you have always been on good terms with Master of the East. But this time, it concerns the resources of our 3 territories. You must not stand on the wrong side. The Master of the South agreed with the Master of the West's words. He nodded and said, Exactly. Master of the North. The Master of the North couldn't help but laugh bitterly. You all think too highly of me. But what you all said makes some sense. Since it concerns the welfare of the cultivators of the North, I can't blindly stand on Brother Dongfang's side unconditionally. No matter what I do, it's difficult. The cultivators of the North were very grateful when they heard this. Master, you don't have to be difficult. Yes, Master, when the time comes we will do it ourselves. We will settle the matter between us and the brothers of the East. There is no need for Master to be difficult. Yes. Everyone was talking at once. It seemed that they had already made up their minds. When they saw the people of the East later, they would ignore everything and rob them first. The Master of the West nodded in satisfaction. The people of the Northern Divine Region were not completely useless. They were a little hot-blooded after being provoked. That's good. He was afraid that the Master of the North would turn around and stand on the side of the East. It would be difficult to evaluate the situation of 2 against 2. Now if it was 3 against 1, Master of the East would definitely lose. At this point, the Master of the West could not help but smile. When he turned to look at the Master of the South, there was a hint of warmth in his eyes. Oh South, with our 3 territories working together, there's no need to worry about what can't be accomplished. The Southern Master giggled. She covered her mouth and twisted her body. Actually, I only want that treasure. Hearing this, their expressions changed slightly. This was especially true for the Master of the West. His face contorted, as if he had just heard a fairy tale. The warmth that filled his heart instantly turned into ice and snow as he stared coldly at the Master of the South. The Master of the North smiled. Everyone came here together because of fate. We're all here for the treasure. Anyway, how should I put it? Let's just rely on our own abilities. The Master of the North tried to smooth things over and harmonize with the current atmosphere. It's fine if we have the same goal. Just treat it as a competition. Don't harm the harmony between us for the sake of competing for the treasure. The Master of the North is right. Hee. The Master of the West laughed with a hint of malevolence. The Master of the South could not be bothered to look at his hypocrisy. He snorted and turned to look at the Master of the North with a smile. Brother North, then why are you here? The Master of the North shook his head and smiled very warmly. I'm here to accompany the people of the North to gain experience. Chapter 56-68. The most important thing is for everyone to improve their cultivation. Everything else is secondary. Brother South, Brother West, we've been cultivating together in the Holy Region for at least a few decades. There's always some brotherly love. I only hope that everyone can live in harmony and peace. I don't ask for anything else. When the Master of the North said this, the group of hotheads from the Northern Region were immediately moved. The Master of the West chuckled. The Master of the South looked at him meaningfully. This Brother North's speech was always a little meaningful. He was quite good at it. With just a few words, He could satisfy and mobilize people's hearts. People from the holy region were always so easy to satisfy. While they were talking, a few more groups of people who were investigating nearby rushed back. They shook their heads without finding anything. Looks like there should have been a sunflower field here before. They should have all been plucked clean by them. Let's not waste any more time. Hurry up and chase after them. If they didn't chase after them, it would really be too late. They were always half a beat slower than the others. It really made them feel a little unwilling to let others get everything first. The Master of the South and his group hurriedly chased after Arbor and the others. In fact, Arbor and the others were not as hurried as the Master of the West and Master of the South thought. They walked over leisurely. Everyone ran to Little Furball's side from time to time and asked with a fawning expression, "Young Master Mo Jr., do you feel it here? Young Master Mo Jr., do you feel the aura of a treasure there?" Young Master Mo Jr.'s little stoic face was tense as he glanced at everyone without batting an eyelid. He really wanted to tell these uncles and aunties that Little Furball was not a human-shaped treasure hunting device. Really, don't put all your hopes on Little Furball, because you'll be disappointed. However, everyone's confidence in baby Mo was greater than his. Along the way, they finally knew that this child, young Master Mo Jr., was a child who could hit the jackpot even when pooping. If they didn't follow him, who should they follow? They had to follow him all the way to the end. They had to shamelessly ask for advice from time to time. Young Master Mo Jr. was a very magical child in their eyes. No wonder the Holy Palace judged him to be the luckiest person. His luck was not for nothing. Quick, quick, do you see it? There seems to be a light in front of us. The big-bellied man exclaimed and quickly reached out to cover his eyes. Everyone else did the same thing as him. They all felt a blinding light coming at them. Arbor glanced over. The light is very strong. That's right, that's right. It felt like something good, and everyone's spirits were lifted. It looks like a lightning array. Arbor roared expressionlessly. Flash. Everyone had followed Madame Mo all the way, and was familiar with her personality. When she shouts, it's best to quickly crawl away. Everyone scrambled in all directions. At the same time, several lightning bolts exploded under their feet. Arbor flew straight up and did a somersault in the air. There's no gravity anymore. I can move. Everyone hurriedly rose into the air. While waving Old Sweat, they looked towards the direction where the light was floating. They saw a cold-faced man with a pair of wings spread out standing in the air, looking at them coldly. It's the guardian of the middle hall. Master Dongfang's eyes narrowed. That man had wings on his back and stood in the air, holding a big bow in his hand. Chapter 56-69. Even the middle hall's guardians have come out. So this means that there should be something good in this place, right? Everyone turned their heads and looked around, but they couldn't see clearly what was going on at the source of the light. Xiaomu narrowed her eyes and sized him up. Are you a puppet that doesn't have a mind of your own? Should be. Emo Lian nodded and tossed her son to Duanyu. She swiped the air, and Raven appeared in her hand. I'll go meet him first. Don't injure his skin. Emo Lian. What did Wifey mean by this, Zhao? Could it be that Wifey felt that this living corpse was very good-looking, so she couldn't bear to injure his skin? I'll go too. Sovereign Peach Blossom also shot out in a flash. Arbor knitted his brows and expressionlessly instructed the two of them. I want a complete puppet man. Sovereign Peach Blossom's longsword spun in the air, but he didn't dare to stab the winged man's chest. What does Jojo mean? Emo Lian's handsome face darkened as she ruthlessly slapped that winged man's face. I've taken a liking to him. Sovereign Peach Blossom. That shouldn't be the case, right? This person wasn't even as good-looking as him. So what did Jojo see in him? That winged man's figure was very tall and sturdy. His eyes were light-colored, so faint that they were almost transparent. His movements were very swift as he drew his bow and shot an arrow in one smooth motion. Several times, the arrowhead brushed past Emolien's hair and drifted by. The little fur ball shrunk in Duanyu's arms and couldn't resist covering her mouth as she exclaimed, Daddy is going to be finished. Duanyu. Emolien really gave birth to a good son. Adoptive father, Daddy is going to be finished. Duan Yu's mouth twitched. Your father won't be finished. That person's archery speed is so fast. Little Furball can't even see it clearly. That's a middle stage divine venerable realm cultivation. You naturally can't see it clearly. Compared to you, his cultivation is much higher. The little Furball was trying her best to see, and she muttered, Oh, so his trajectory is like this. Oh, archery can be done like this, ah. I see. Duan Yu was a bit amused. He looked down at the child and patted his little head. Rest for a while if you feel dizzy. Baby Emo blinked his eyes. I'm not dizzy. I'm even more relaxed. Dongfang Yuju was slightly startled. This was probably the first time he had seen young Master Mo and his friend fight. Their speed was astonishingly fast. With his eyesight, it was difficult for him to clearly see their movements. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes slightly. Whoosh! The winged man shot out an arrow that flew past Venerable Peach Blossom and headed straight for Duan Yu. Everyone exclaimed and turned their heads to look. In the blink of an eye, Duan Yu flicked his sleeve, and the arrowhead in front of him abruptly disintegrated into powder without leaving a trace. At this moment, Master Dongfang's pupils couldn't help but contract slightly. It turned out that the cultivation of this extremely young man was actually on par with young Master Mo in that case. There was almost no point in comparing this battle. It was a completely one-sided crushing. The winged man's body was quickly struck by a fire spirit. At the same time that he lunged forward, Venerable Peach Blossom used a series of spinning wooden vines to restrain him. Before 5 minutes were up, this middle-stage divine Venerable Realm Guardian was subdued by the two of them. Not to mention Master Dongfang. All the Eastern region cultivators present were also stupefied. Chapter 56-70. It was hard to believe that young Master Mo's group actually had such a high cultivation level. No wonder those people who went to the bamboo garden to provoke them always left in high spirits and returned with such a killjoy. If the other party had such a high cultivation level, then there really wasn't any power that could shake them. Arbor glanced at the two of them. Mo Lien was currently dragging the end of the wooden vine, pulling that twin-winged person, who was wrapped up tightly to her. After the two-winged man was subdued, his head drooped and he didn't make a sound. It was as if someone abruptly pressed the stop button on his body, and he completely stopped moving. Arbor turned around and roared, Dunzong, Dunzong? Dunzong hastily squeezed over from the back of the crowd and raised his clenched fist. Little Master, Dunzong is here. Arbor glanced at him. Dunzong, what do you think of this body? She secretly made up her mind. If Dunzong still didn't fancy such a young and powerful body that was born with a special ability, then she wouldn't care whether he lived or died. Dunzong was sensible as expected, and his eyes lit up the moment he saw the two-winged person. Me? Master, are you giving this body to me? He's just a puppet guardian without any thoughts, so it's perfect for you to use. What do you think? Dunzong felt like his little master was asking. Do you dare to say no? He also secretly felt that this body was young and sturdy and looked alright. At least it looked much better than this vulgar Gung Pengcheng's body. Yes. Dunzong nodded like he was pounding garlic. Little Master, you're really too good to Dunzong. Dunzong likes it very much. Dunzong is especially happy. Arbor glanced at his fawning appearance, and her lips turned up, inadvertently revealing a faint smile. Dunzong's eyes instantly turned into crescents from his smile. However, he was still in Manor Lord Gung's body, so his smile looked especially vulgar in Mo Lien's eyes. Without thinking, she swatted him away with a punch. Mo Lien walked up and held his wife's small paw. I'll do the exchange. Arbor nodded. Then I'll go ahead and take a look. Let Duan Yu and Rotten Peach Blossom help you. Arbor logically took over his son from Duan Yu's hands and left the matter to him. Then he dragged his son to scavenge at the front. The rest of the people couldn't help but want to laugh. They looked at the three of them sympathetically. Get busy. Let's go ahead and take a look. She wanted to see if there was anything that Jojo didn't want. She didn't want to waste it. Dongfang Yuju and his group also hurriedly followed, leaving the three people to accompany Dunzong and look at each other. The same thought flashed through the minds of Mo Lien and the other two at the same time. I want to plant them all. Dunju hurriedly ran to the peach blossom deity's side and cried out pitifully, Shi-chin, don't cheat me this time. You must help me change my body back. It's best if you can make me stronger. Duan Yu curled his lips. You hit it off so well with rotten peach blossoms. So why don't you consider switching to a woman's body? Tun Tun smiled wretchedly. I still prefer a man's body. Unable to restrain himself, the peach blossom deity punched the top of his head. Pfft, Mo Lien sputtered with laughter. She walked up and kicked Dunzong. Hurry up, don't waste time. Perhaps Dongfang Yuzhu and the rest would catch up to them soon. Besides, he really wanted to follow his wife over to take a look. Not knowing what good stuff was ahead, the crowd let out waves of exclamations, each louder than the last. Mo Lien patted Dunzong's back and exerted a bit of force. Chapter 56-71. Tun Tun's soul left Gung Pengcheng's body and flew in a straight line towards the wooden vines on the other side under Duan Yu and He Chen's combined palm strikes. At the same time, Arbor held her son's small hand and strolled around the two pillars. There were many cultivation technique manuals placed in the middle hall, and everyone from the eastern region ran over to read them. However, Jojo was completely uninterested in these. She had plenty of cultivation techniques in the Hall of Longevity, so she really didn't need them. Hence, her gaze and her son's gaze were fixed on the hilt of the long sword in front of them. The entire sword was embedded into the steel. Several lines of small words were engraved on the steel. Sword trial steel. The Cloud Sky sword was forged by a great swordsmith through a blood trial 3,000 years ago. The sword's edge was so sharp that it could slash through cities and split the heavens. It belonged to the Fated One. Baby Mo's eyes lit up when he saw this sword. I'm just short of a sword, the little fellow said. Short of a handy sword. I think I should be that Fated One. Arbor didn't even give birth to her son. So where did his confidence come from? She really wanted to ask her son. How did you know that you're the Fated One for this sword? Mother, you don't believe me? Baby Mo blinked his watery phoenix eyes, his small face glowing with a strange radiance. When I got close, I heard the sword say to me, come quickly, come quickly, come quickly, come quickly, come quickly, pull me out. Haha. I heard it so clearly. Sir Jojo expressionlessly looked down at her son. He spoke as if it was true. And even she couldn't help but want to believe it. I'm called Mo Xiao, and it's called Cloud Sky. It's truly fate that brought us together. Sir Jojo, Feng Chongqing and the rest who followed him. This child was truly a little demon king who lived in the heavens and the earth. To be honest, they really weren't that confident when they were his age. Baby Mo was itching to try. I'll pull it out. Wait, I'll go first. At this time, a Western region cultivator rushed out from the crowd and stared at the long sword that had sunk into the steel, revealing only a little of its hilt. A greedy light flashed in his eyes. He flew forward and placed one hand on the hilt of the sword. He shouted, rise. His fingers tightly gripped the hilt of the sword, and his face instantly turned red. The entire sword was still inside the stone tablet, showing no signs of being shaken at all. Boos came from all around, and the Western regioner's face flushed red. Zhang Jing's face was cold. Shameless. How dare you snatch something from a child? Several Eastern region cultivators at the side nodded in agreement. Along the way, they had received a lot of care from the child's parents. If it weren't for the child's parents, who knew how many times they would have died by now? Not only did they not know how to be grateful, but they also exposed the selfish nature of the people of the Western regions. They did not even let go of the longsword that the child had taken a fancy to. Jojo, on the other hand, was not angry. That was human nature. What was there to be angry about? She and Mo Lien had brought these people along the way. From the beginning, they had never thought of asking for anything in return. In any case, they would gather if they wanted to and disperse if they didn't. They were just a temporary team. But as for the people in her team, she would definitely protect them until the end. The Western region cultivator's face was a little hot. He gripped the hilt of the sword tightly with both hands and shouted, rise! His other hand slammed heavily on the stone tablet. The stone tablet did not move, but his hands seemed to be firmly attached to the hilt of the sword. His hands suddenly became hot. Chapter 56-72. His face turned pale with fright, and his entire body trembled as he tried to take a few steps back. However, he was firmly trapped on the spot. His expression was one of unbearable pain as he howled in pain. "Quick, look at his hands!" He weeping couldn't help but exclaim. Everyone looked in the direction he was pointing, only to see that the Western region cultivator's hands had turned completely red. It was as if they were being roasted in a raging fire, completely red and shockingly hot. Everyone couldn't help but shudder, and then they saw an even stranger scene. The blood in that person's hands seemed to be boiling, flowing rapidly through his veins. As the sword hilt sucked, the blood in the Western region cultivator's hands seemed to be sucked into the sword bit by bit. His hand was like the bark of a tree that was rapidly drying up, quickly becoming thinner. His face turned pale with fright. He turned his head in pain and screamed, "Save me, save me." So scary. Several female cultivators covered their faces with their hands, trying their best to suppress the churning feeling in their stomachs. The person in front of them was really disgusting. He was losing blood very quickly, and before long, his entire arm had turned into dried-up wood, completely limp. However, his hands were still holding onto the sword hilt. Various expressions of regret, resentment, disappointment, and fear appeared on his face. Suddenly, a long sword flew over everyone's heads, straight towards that person, and with a whoosh cut off her arms. "Ah!" The Western region cultivator screamed, and fell to the ground. Arbor took his son's hand, and took a step back. The Western master and his group quickly walked forward, looking around, and fixed their gaze on the man who was rapidly aging, his face as dry as tree bark. "Master, master! Save me, save me!" The Western master looked him up and down, revealing a pitiful expression. "You're about to die." Most of the blood in this person's body had been sucked out, and he couldn't live at all. Even if he cut off his arms and let him leave that strange stone tablet, it was a pity that he couldn't live. "No, master, I still don't want to die." The Western Imperial Master had a rather deep impression of this person. Back then, during the top 200 selection competition, this person's cultivation was considered to be above average. Unfortunately, he had followed the wrong team and the wrong person. This was the consequence of betraying the Western regions. "Madam M.O., my men died right under your nose. Shouldn't you give me an explanation?" The Western Master ignored the struggling cultivator and turned to look at Arbor. The moment he opened his mouth, he questioned him. "What kind of explanation do you want?" Emolian slowly walked over. Duan Yu and the venerable Peach Blossom divinity were walking next to him. At this moment, their gazes were slightly raised as they sized up the Western Master. Dunzong lowered its head and flapped its wings excitedly. For a while it would stop and walk, and for a while it would run and run. It circled around the three of them happily like an immortal. When the Western Master saw them, there was a hint of fear in his eyes. After all, even he couldn't see through the cultivation of these young people. His strength should not be underestimated. He couldn't afford to offend them. But now, if he didn't take this opportunity to demand some compensation from them, it wouldn't seem right. Hence, he shot a look at the Southern Master beside him. The Southern Master's large red lips curled up, and she couldn't help but snort. Did he think she was stupid? She had to jump out and be ordered around by the Western Master with just a look? Dream on. Chapter 56-73. If you want compensation, go ahead and ask for it yourself. Don't order me around like a servant. The Master of the West glared angrily at the Master of the South. This damned woman was always a hindrance at crucial moments. He stared at Arbor with a fake smile and said coldly, "Logically speaking, Madame Mo shouldn't be fully responsible for this matter. But he died in Madame Mo's team. No matter what, shouldn't you give some compensation?" Everyone's eyelids twitched when they heard this. They didn't know what was going on, but when they heard the word compensation, their eyelids twitched. They felt like something. It was as if someone was holding a knife to their neck. No matter how they put it, it felt wrong. Arbor glanced at the Western master coldly. You want compensation from me? Haha. This person actually wanted compensation from Master Jojo. What a simple-minded fellow. Then do you know why this person ended up like this? This person didn't listen to advice and went up to the sword trial monument to draw the sword. In the end, he was killed by the backlash of the sword light. Who is to blame? What a joke. You should blame yourself for being greedy instead of blaming him or you. Greed was the origin of tragedy. The Western master rolled his eyes. How is that possible? He took a few steps forward and looked at the small words on the sword trial monument. The others couldn't help but go forward to observe. Seeing that the entire sword hilt was buried in the monument, everyone couldn't help but roll their eyes. It was really strange. There was such a sword in such a broken monument. Since it was made by a famous sword master 3,000 years ago, it must be a famous sword. Why had they never heard of Yin Xiao before? The little dumpling blinked and asked in a childish voice, Mother, can I go up and pull it out? Master Jojo hesitated slightly and didn't let go of his son's hand. This sword was very strange. Before she figured it out, she didn't want her son to take the risk. Although this little guy kept telling her that there was no danger, as a mother, she was still nervous. Arbor still held his son's hand and warned, Let's take a look first. Baby Mo blinked his eyes and replied unwillingly, Oh. After being quiet for a while, he raised his head again. With an innocent face, he asked his mother, Mother, didn't you hear the sound of the sword? Arbor's eyes moved slightly. He looked down at his son and shook his head. No. I heard it. Xiao Tuanzi counted with her fingers. 3 long ones and 2 short ones. It's urging me to hurry up. The people from the western regions couldn't help but sneer. Him. A small fellow with a small body wanted to draw his sword? It was more likely that the sword would pull him out. Baby Mo did not care about other people's gazes, and used his eyes to signal to his mother. It was as if he was asking her if she could go up and try. Emolian slowly walked forward, and reached out to grab his wife's small hand. He nodded slightly at her. Let him go. Weren't boys supposed to train? Since this guy was so confident, there was no harm in letting him try. Taking a step back, even if he didn't succeed, he could still strike a blow to this fellow's inflated self-confidence. Master Jojo saw the deeper meaning in her husband's eyes. She couldn't help but glance at Jojo's lotus. Her husband always wanted to strike a blow to her son. It must be because he wanted to take revenge on Baby Mo for tricking him. Let me try. Before Arbor let go, another person flew forward. Chapter 5674. It turned out that it was a West Region cultivator who had rushed forward after receiving the West Master's signal with his eyes. This West Region cultivator was very tall, and his arms were bulging. His hands were also very broad and thick. He looked abnormally imposing when bursting with power. Arbor swept him a glance and mocked. West Master, you see that, right? Your clan's cultivator jumped out for a trial again. Isn't that so? If he dies again this time, don't come looking for us again. Fu San said with a chuckle. He waved his hand and said, Actually, if you don't have the strength, it's best if you don't take on that task. After all, a person only has one life. It's gone if you lose it. The West Region cultivator glowered at him and said coldly, Don't worry. I won't lose. I've never lost in my life. This person had a very confident expression. He took a few steps forward, stretched out his hands, and took a deep breath. Then, he abruptly gripped the sword hilt and pulled. Tsk. A scorching sensation came from the sword hilt, causing his entire body to stiffen. Tsk. This scorching sensation rose again, and seemed to be scuttling toward his arms. That person was alarmed, and he subconsciously wanted to retract his hands and let go. However, his hands were firmly sucked onto the sword hilt, and he simply couldn't let go. Duan Yu's eyes flickered, and he muttered to himself, Cloud Sky? How is that possible? This should be a blood sword, right? When everyone heard his words, it was as if they were struck by lightning, and they all shuddered. Realization dawned on the South Master, and he exclaimed, Right, it's a blood sword. It should be a blood sword. If there was a sword from 3,000 years ago that was passed down through the ages, it would probably be this blood sword that struck terror in people's hearts. However, everyone only treated it as a legend and never made the connection. Moreover, that stone tablet was engraved with the words Cloud Sky. Who would know that this fraudulent sword was actually a blood sword? Look at how happily it sucked blood. This was truly a sword that was as bloodthirsty as its own life. As they spoke, the West Region cultivator in front of them had more than half of his blood sucked away by the blood sword. Right now, he was like a pile of dried bones as he crashed to the ground. The originally tall and imposing figure now looked like a skeleton wrapped in a layer of skin. The skin and flesh were frighteningly thin. Everyone was scared silly and took a few steps back. Terrifying. If that was the case, then this sword was equivalent to a sword from hell that came to claim lives. Whoever took it would be in trouble. Whoever wanted to die would die. The Western Imperial Master and his men finally learned their lesson and retreated a few steps. Baby Emo blinked. What are they doing? Arbor's expression did not change. They are afraid of this sword. What's there to be afraid of? This sword is so beautiful. I like it very much. Beautiful is beautiful, but it can hurt. How is that possible? It's very obedient. Mother, if you don't believe me, I'll show it to you. Emo Baobao hopped forward a few steps and ran to the front of the stone tablet. The Master of the South pretended to be frightened and covered his mouth with his hand, reminding him in a shrill voice, "Child, that's not a fun toy. It's a blood sword that can take people's lives. You can't pick it up." That's right, kid. The two adults in front lost their lives on the spot. Do you want to follow in their footsteps? Baby Emo turned his head to look at the people who were shouting at him. Don't speak nonsense. How can I be hurt by it? It's very obedient. Chapter 56-75. 135 Famous sword for very obedient? What kind of joke was this? You said that this sword was very obedient, but this blood sword had just killed two people in a bloodthirsty manner. Everyone looked at Baby Emo as if they were looking at an idiot. The latter did not mind at all. He did not even look at them as he reached out to grab the hilt of the sword. The Western Master's lips curled into a cold smile. The Master of the South pretended to cover his eyes with his hands and even cried out pitifully. The Eastern Master stared at Baby Emo calmly as a strange light seemed to escape from his eyes. The tragedy that everyone expected did not happen. There was nothing at all. Baby Emo pulled out the sword with a clang sound. Everyone. The Western Master? It must be an illusion. What did this child do? Oh. The Southern Master's mouth was wide open. Her mouth was wide open, and her eyes were filled with disbelief. The blood sword was pulled out by this child just like that? He pulled it out. Everyone felt a wave of dizziness in their heads. For some reason, they felt as if the world was spinning. It was too scary. Were all 4 or 5-year-old babies so scary? What kind of strange child was this? Baby Emo pulled out the sword, bringing out a ray of light. There seemed to be a trace of moonlight circulating on the sword. How was it the blood sword that others were talking about? It was the clouds. There was a white mist circulating around the sword, like the clouds in the 9 heavens. It was beautiful, really beautiful. Baby Emo touched the treasured sword and could not bear to let it go. It was really beautiful. 135 Famous sword for very obedient? What kind of joke was this? You said that this sword was very obedient, but this blood sword had just killed 2 people in a bloodthirsty manner. Everyone looked at Baby Emo as if they were looking at an idiot. The latter did not care at all. He did not even look at them as he reached out to grab the hilt of the sword. The Western Master's lips curled into a cold smile. The Master of the South pretended to cover his eyes with his hands and even cried out pitifully. The Eastern Master stared at Baby Emo calmly as a strange light seemed to escape from his eyes. The tragedy that everyone had expected did not happen. In fact, there was nothing at all. Just like that, Baby Emo pulled out the sword with a clang. Everyone. Western Master. It must be an illusion. What did this child do? Oh. The Southern Master's mouth was wide enough to hold up an egg. Her mouth was wide open, and her eyes were filled with disbelief. The blood sword was pulled out so easily by this child? It was pulled out. Everyone felt a wave of dizziness in their heads. They felt as if the world was spinning. It was too terrifying. Were all 4 or 5-year-old babies these days so scary? What kind of strange child was this? Mo Bao Bao unsheathed his sword, bringing out a stream of light. There seemed to be a wisp of moonlight flowing on the sword. How could this be the so-called blood sword that others were talking about? It was Yin Xiao. Boundless white mist swirled around the blade of the sword. It was as if the clouds had ascended to the 9th heaven. Yet it was also as if it was emitting boundless multicolored light. It was beautiful, truly beautiful. Mo Bao Bao touched the treasured sword and couldn't bear to part with it. It was really beautiful. Baby Mo pulled out the sword, bringing out a stream of light. There seemed to be a wisp of moonlight flowing on the sword. How could this be the blood sword that others were talking about? It was Yin Xiao. There was a white mist flowing on the sword, like the clouds in the 9 heavens. It was beautiful, really beautiful. Chapter 56-76. Before anyone could react, the long sword that was as thin as glass turned around and flew back into Mo Bao Bao's hand with a whoosh. Baby Mo held it and glanced at the people around him. He grinned. He held the sword, which was as tall as him, and ran to the Western master. He looked up innocently. "Uncle, do you want to try it too?" The Western master's expression was extremely ugly. He could not say a word for a long time. This child was here to humiliate him on purpose. If that wasn't the case, he wouldn't have come all the way here to say those words. If the Western master shook his head in front of everyone, wouldn't it be a slap to his own face? After all, he was the first to jump out and question it. He even wanted to try the blood sword and take it for himself. Although the child's father and the rest were very powerful, the Western master thought that as long as he got the sword, his cultivation might increase greatly. But now, seeing an idiot get his neck slit by the blood sword in front of him, how could the Western master be so stupid to try this demonic blood sword again? He didn't think that he had many lives to play around with. The Western master pondered over it again and again. In the end, he still replied with a dark face, "There's no need." Baby Mo pursed his small mouth and ran back with his sword in hand. He pounced to his mother's side and tugged at Xiao Mu's arm, saying aggrievedly, "That uncle went back on his word. It was he who said he wanted to test his sword. Now that I'm here, he doesn't want it anymore. Xiao Tuanzi hates him." Arbor held back his laughter and nodded. "Mother hates this person too." The mother and son looked at each other. Arbor held his son's hand and whispered to him, "Forget it. Don't lower yourself to the same level as an old man. Look at how old he is, and how inexperienced he is. Just treat it as respect and let him have it." Baby Mo nodded his head. Suddenly, a mechanical announcement came from the sky. "The sacred palace will close in 46 hours. Now announcing the latest round of luck ranking. First place Mo Xiao. Second place He Weiping. Third place Zhang Jing. Fourth place Master Dongfang." It wasn't until the 808th place was announced that the Western master's name was announced by the robotic voice. 779th place, Western master. Last place, minus 200 points. Everyone was speechless. The Southern master laughed so hard that he almost fell to the ground. "Hey, old Western man, why are you in last place again?" The Sacred Palace's latest ranking on the Providence Board would exclude those who had died. Thus, out of the 808 people, only 779 people were left. But no matter how they ranked, the Western Master was always the last. The Western Master's face turned completely black. He couldn't help but roar. Why? Was there something wrong with the heavenly Tao? From the moment he stepped into the Sacred Palace until now, he hadn't obtained anything at all. Naturally, it was impossible for him to mistakenly consume some strange herbs and have his points deducted. In the previous experiential training, he was unlucky enough to be ranked last. That was because he mistook a poisonous herb for an immortal herb and couldn't wait to consume it, causing his cultivation level to drop bit by bit. But this time he didn't do that. With the previous experience, he had been extremely careful ever since he entered the Sacred Palace. Volume 137-8. You don't respect. Meihe didn't touch anything in the sacred palace at all. He was even very careful when he walked, afraid that he would accidentally fall into a trap. If he was poisoned, his points would definitely be deducted. Heavenly Tao, you're unfair. The more the Western master thought about it, the angrier he became. He couldn't help but point at the sky and curse. Emolian turned her head and looked at the Western master, as if she was looking at an idiot. How could there be such a foolish and naive person in this world? Sure enough, as soon as this person finished speaking, the Heavenly Tao took the opportunity to strike down with a bolt of lightning. With a boom, it smashed directly on top of his head. The Western master immediately changed into a fashionable curly hairstyle. His entire face was indeed blackened by the lightning. The people of the Western region screamed. The people of the Eastern region couldn't help but cover their mouths and snicker. The Western master was fearless and openly challenged the Heavenly Tao. Let's see if the Heavenly Tao can kill him, bastard. The Heavenly Tao's angry voice came from the sky. How dare you disrespect me like this? Deduct points. The Heavenly Tao immediately made the next decision. Not long after, the cold voice of the broadcast started again. The 779th Western Master. First from the bottom. His attitude is improper, and he is disrespectful to the Heavenly Tao. Now another 300 points will be deducted. Now his points are negative 500. The Southern Master really couldn't hold it in, and really burst out laughing. Then, she put on a fake apologetic smile, and turned to the Western Master who was glaring at her. She waved her hand and said, Sorry, Brother Western. I really couldn't hold it in. The laughter around them really couldn't be suppressed, including the people behind the Western Master's own team. There were people who were laughing so hard that their shoulders were shaking. It was really hard to control. They really let their master down. But the master's silly behavior really made people feel that it was extremely funny. He was clearly only negative 200 points before. But now, he had reached the sky in one step, and was negative 500 points. So what if it was negative 500 points? The master now felt worse than a beggar on the street. That appearance simply made people feel bad just by looking at it. The Western Master clenched his fists and wanted to rush up angrily. Two young Western region disciples hurriedly ran out from behind, and hurriedly grabbed him by the waist, and dragged him into the crowd. Master, please don't take things too hard. Do you still want to argue with the Heavenly Tao Elder? The consequences of arguing with the Heavenly Tao is very likely that the Heavenly Tao Elder will directly teleport you out of the Divine Palace, and make you the first person to give up. How despicable! The Western Master was so angry that he was almost speechless. He snorted and was dragged into the crowd by the two disciples. His whole body was trembling with anger. He was supported by someone to sit down on a stone block at the side. Master, where there is life, there is hope. Yes, Master, you can't argue with the Heavenly Tao, right? We still have to continue, right? Now that you are last, what are you afraid of? As long as you enter the main palace and get that treasure, you will be the luckiest person, Master. Yes. The Western Master was comforted by the words of the disciples one after another, and his expression recovered slightly, but his face was completely charred black by the Heavenly Tao, and there was not a single trace of white on it. The main palace is just ahead, Master. Let's not get entangled with them. Yes. As long as we make the right bet, everything is possible. Let's go to the main palace, the Western Master shouted and directly stood up. Chapter 56-77. He did not touch anything in the Divine Palace at all. He even walked very carefully, afraid that he would accidentally fall into a trap. If he was poisoned, his points would definitely be deducted. Heavenly Axiom, you are unfair. The more the Western Master thought about it, the angrier he became. He could not help but point at the sky and curse. Emolian turned her head and looked at the Western Master, as if she was looking at a fool. How could there be such a foolish and naive person in this world? Sure enough, as soon as this person finished speaking, Heavenly Axiom took the opportunity to strike down with a bolt of lightning. With a loud boom, it smashed directly on top of his head. The Western Master immediately changed into a fashionable curly hairstyle. His entire face was indeed struck black by lightning. The people of the Western region cried out in alarm. The people of the Eastern region could not help but cover their mouths and snicker. The Western Master was not afraid of death. He openly challenged Heavenly Axiom. Let's see if Heavenly Axiom can slap him to death, bastard bastard. Heavenly Axiom's angry voice came from the sky. How dare you disrespect an old man like me? Deduct points. Heavenly Axiom made a prompt decision. Not long after, the cold voice of the broadcast sounded again. The 779th Western Master. First from the bottom. His attitude is improper, and he is disrespectful to Heavenly Axiom. Another 300 points will be deducted. Now his points are -500. Pfft. The Southern Master really could not hold it in. He really burst out laughing. Then, she put on a fake apologetic smile, and turned to the Western Master who was glaring at her. She waved her hand and said, Sorry, brother Western. I really couldn't hold it in. The laughter around them could not be suppressed, including the people behind the Western Master's own team. There were people who laughed until their shoulders shook. It was really hard to control. They felt so sorry for their master. But their master's silly behavior was hilarious. He was only -200 points earlier. Now he had reached the sky in one step, and was -500 points, so be it. The master felt worse than a beggar on the street. That appearance simply made people feel uncomfortable just by looking at it. The Western Master clenched his fists and wanted to rush up angrily. Two young disciples of the Western regions hurriedly ran out from behind him. They hurriedly grabbed him by the waist and dragged him back into the crowd. Master, please don't take things too hard. Do you still want to go against the Heavenly Tao Elder? The consequence of insulting the Heavenly Tao was that the Heavenly Tao Elder might directly teleport you out of the Holy Palace, making you the first person to give up. How despicable. The Western Master was so angry that he was almost speechless. With a harumph, he was dragged into the crowd by two disciples. He was so angry that his entire body was trembling. He was supported by someone to sit down on a stone block at the side. Master, where there's life, there's hope. Yes. Master, we can't go against the Heavenly Axiom. We have to continue, don't we? What's there to be afraid of when you're in last place? As long as you enter the main palace and obtain that treasure, you will be the luckiest person in the world, Master. Right. The Western Imperial Master was comforted by the words of his disciples, and his expression recovered a little. However, his face had been charred black by the Heavenly Tao and was completely white. The main palace is just ahead, Master. Let's not get entangled with them. Yes. As long as we make the right bet, everything is possible. Let's go to the main palace. The Western Master shouted and stood up. Chapter 5678. He didn't believe it. Could it be that the Western Master would be ranked last every year? Impossible. Go to the main hall. He urgently needed to go to the main hall to prove that he wasn't an unlucky person. There were still 24 hours left. There was more than enough time. He would definitely be able to turn this crooked situation around. Arbor looked at the people from the Western region in confusion. What are they doing? They're going to the main hall. Feng Zhangfei glanced over. Are we going too? Arbor shook his head. Let's rest first. That's right. Ever since they entered the Holy Palace, no one had rested. No one had any objections to Arbor's suggestion. They sat in a row and began to nap to recover their sacred power. The Southern Master and the others looked at them as if they were looking at a weirdo. Their faces were full of disbelief. Of course, the Southern Master didn't say anything in the end. It was unknown if Madame Mo and the others were born with overconfidence, but they were actually resting in the Holy Palace. Could she not rest for the rest of her life? There were only a few hours left, and she still wanted to rest. Everyone rested for 6 hours before setting off again. There were only 40 hours left before the Holy Palace closed. But when the announcement was out, everyone couldn't help but feel amused. The ranking was no different from before. In fact, the Western Master's score was now -501 points. They really didn't know where this 0 came from. Could it be that they haven't entered the main hall in 6 hours? The big-bellied man couldn't help but ask. It's obvious. Everyone, don't worry, Arbor said calmly. With their intelligence, they must still be waiting for us. Everyone. That was why Sir Jojo was so calm from the beginning to the end. In any case, whether it was slow or fast, in the end, the Western Master and the others still had to wait for them at the entrance of the main hall. Actually, the Western Master and the others were already regretting it. They had been squatting at the entrance of the main hall foolishly, competing with the rows of mechanical men in front of the main hall. They were all exhausted and were about to cry. If they had to choose again, they would definitely choose to stay in the middle hall and rest with Madame Mo. But now there was no chance to choose again. Everyone had a bitter look on their faces as they fought with the golems in front of them. These mechanical puppets were neither alive nor dead, neither happy nor sad. Rows after rows of crippled mechanical puppets would appear. It was truly a headache and an annoyance. The Southern Master was also a little exhausted. He held his sword and ran a few steps outside, but he was blocked by a few mechanical golems who surrounded him from the left. She really wanted to scream for help. She wanted to run back to get help and look for Madame Mo. After a series of attacks, the Master of the South panted and shouted, "West, quickly think of something." The Master of the West wanted to reply to the Master of the South, but he was hit in the face by a mechanical puppet. Half of his teeth had almost fallen out, and his mouth was bleeding from the beating. He cried out in pain and swung the sword in his left hand, cutting off half of the golem's head. Xiao Mu and company arrived late, and this was the bizarre scene that greeted them. Sir Jojo spread his hands expressionlessly. See, she knew that with the intelligence of these people, they would never be able to enter the main hall. Chapter 56-79. After all, with their species, they couldn't even see the mechanism on the pillar. Now that he saw them fighting with rows of mechanical men, Arbor couldn't help but want to laugh. As expected, her prophecy came true. What was good about these people? They were all messing around. Couldn't they have stayed in the middle hall to recuperate with them? Look at how miserable and pitiful they were now. The group stood far away and watched for a while as usual. Master Dongfang might have felt that this was a little unethical. He coughed lightly and asked, "Madame Mo, do you think we should go over and help?" Madame Mo shook her hand. "It's not appropriate." Master Dongfang's lips twitched. "Why not? These mechanical men can't be killed or destroyed. Look, they're coming out from the small door at the back. I think we can go around the main door and enter from the side door," Madame Mo said with a serious expression. "Master Dongfang and the others are fighting with the mechanical men. We'd better not disturb their mood. Everyone." Arbor led the group towards the side door. The sharp-eyed Master Dongfang naturally saw them at first glance. He couldn't help but roar in shock. "What are you doing? Come and help." He felt that these people weren't here to help. They pulled the group towards a place where there were no mechanical men. Were they thinking of leaving them here to continue attracting the mechanical men's firepower, and then going around the main door? Shameless scoundrel, Master Dongfang cursed. Arbor and the others had already walked to a small side door and reached out to push it. The wooden door opened, and a stone path appeared inside. It was winding and led to an unknown place. Arbor waved his hand and looked interested. "Let's go." "Stop right there." The Western Master was completely dumbfounded. Damn, there were actually such shameless people in the world. Were they really using them as targets and leaving them here to continue attracting the mechanical men? Were they going to let the people from the other 3 regions stay here and continue to be beaten up by the mechanical men? They weren't even going to lift a finger? Shameless, shameless, shameless. The Western Master was so angry that he beat his chest and stomped his feet. The Southern Master was also stunned. He turned to look at the Northern Master. "Brother Northern, Brother Dongfang actually left with Madame Mo, and the rest just like that? It seems that your so-called brotherhood has completely dissipated in the face of difficulties." The Master of the North smiled faintly. He wasn't too angry. Everyone has their own mission. Brother Dongfang's mission is to bring the people of the Eastern Domain out of here in one piece. I don't blame him for his choice. The Southern Master said sarcastically. You sure have a good temper. As he spoke, the sound of a mechanism dropping to the ground could be heard from the main hall, followed by the sound of gears creaking. The mechanical puppets that had been attacking the people of the three regions, with all their might suddenly stopped. One by one, their arms drooped slightly by their sides, and their heads drooped down. It was as if someone had pulled a string, and they were completely motionless. The three masters were still in a defensive state, facing the golems that had surrounded them in a circle. Soon they heaved a sigh of relief. The mechanical men really didn't move. Let's go. They've probably reached the main hall. Madam Mo, and the rest must have triggered some mechanism. Things might change if they delayed. Chapter 5680. The Southern Master stretched out his finger and pushed aside the arm of one of the golems. He then squeezed out of their encirclement. The Western Master started to panic as he roared, "Hurry! I'm afraid that they have already reached the main palace and triggered some mechanism. That's why the golems here stopped attacking." This was very, very bad. Along the way, they were always one step behind the others. They were especially passive. Now if they were one step behind, someone else would beat them to it again. A trace of hostility flashed across the Western Master's eyes. Let's go. Let's go, let's go. The Southern Master also urged the people beside him impatiently. The group of people broke out of the golem's encirclement and hurriedly ran towards the main palace. That speed was really exerting all the strength they had when they were young. They had no choice but to be fast. If they were one step behind, they felt that the treasures in the sky would have already fallen into the enemy's hands. If that was really the case, they were really unwilling to accept it. The Western Master was about to explode. I didn't expect that we would end up empty-handed. When the Western Master said that, the people beside him were also about to explode. They thought to themselves, isn't that so? We worked so hard to come to the sacred palace, but in the end, we didn't get anything at all. This was really sullen. It really made them unwilling to accept it. The group of people quickly ran to the main palace, and ran in one after another. The Western Master was the first to shout angrily, "What are you doing?" There were many people gathered in the main palace. Everyone was looking up as if it was the new year. They were happily looking for treasures. These treasures were hanging above everyone's heads. They were in wooden boxes of the same color and material. They all looked about the same size. But everyone understood that when they opened the wooden boxes, there could be pills or herbs inside. It could also be refining materials. It could even be divine weapons, sacred weapons, or sacred beasts. The item seemed to be within reach, but it was extremely difficult to peel it out from inside. Furthermore, everyone's choices were not endless. After all, there were less than 38 hours left before the sacred palace closed. And every time they used all their strength to take the items out of the wooden boxes, they would have to rest for a while. Just like now, there were many people in the main palace who were resting. It seemed that these people had already taken the first round of treasures. They were indeed one step ahead of them. As expected, the Western Master glared at Xiao Mu, who was standing silently on the side. If it wasn't for this wretched girl leading her men away, would they have been one step behind her? However, at a time like this, the Western Master naturally had no time to argue with Arbor. His eyes quickly moved to the rows of wooden boxes hanging in front of him. He couldn't make up his mind. As for the Master of the South and the Master of the North, they had each chosen a wooden box, and were trying their best to open it. Looking at the strength they used when competing with the wooden box, it seemed that they had chosen a good treasure. A hint of jealousy flashed across the Western Master's eyes. He began to doubt himself. Could it be that he was really that unlucky? Sometimes, one really had to believe in fate. The Western Master collected his thoughts, and casually pointed at a wooden box that was hanging above his head. He concentrated on infusing his saint energy into it. At the same time, Master Dongfang, who was originally meditating and adjusting his breath, suddenly turned his gaze and instantly became extremely sharp. He quickly got up from the ground, Even Lord Xiao Qiao was unable to react in time. She saw Master Dongfang running to the left side of the main hall. Chapter 5681. What are you doing? Feng Zhangqing, who was closer, couldn't help but frown and roar. However, they saw Master Dongfang turn his head and smile strangely at them. Previously, this person had always appeared to be extremely well-mannered. Now that he had suddenly become so strange, it was indeed shocking. Creak, a sudden sound was heard. Master Dongfang raised his hand and pressed a mechanism on the wall. At the same time, everyone heard a loud rumbling sound, accompanied by the sound of sand and stones falling. The doors of the hall are all closed. Several people couldn't help but exclaim, looking back and forth in horror. Arbor glanced at Master Dongfang, his voice exceptionally calm. You want to die with everyone? Madame Emo, I'm sorry. Master Dongfang nodded at her politely and smiled warmly. I have no other choice. Although most of you are innocent, my ability is limited. If I don't sacrifice you, I won't be able to take revenge. Master Dongfang sighed, showing a worried look. Several of the cultivators in the eastern region, who had come out of their cultivation state, were stunned when they heard Master Dongfang's words. What did Master Dongfang mean? What did he mean by he won't be able to take revenge without sacrificing them? How was he going to take revenge? While speaking, above the main hall, the originally dark carved wooden beams suddenly burst into a red light. Wooden boxes floated quietly in the air. Many people were still immersed in their cultivation state and had not yet come out. There were also many people who were still using their holy power to penetrate the wooden boxes, trying to take the treasures from the boxes. Although they knew that something dangerous had happened outside, they were all in the same state and couldn't get out of it immediately. Although they were secretly anxious in their hearts, there was nothing they could do. Arbor glanced at him coldly. There was no change in his expression, but his cold tone was bone-chilling. So, you came to me before just to use me? What you told me was nonsense, not a word of it true. No. What I said about my wife, and about me entering the sacred palace to look for Crimson Dawn, it's all true. You joined our team to use the strength of our entire team to help you reach the main palace as soon as possible, Arbor said coldly. Sorry, Madame Mo. As I said, this is only a solution within a solution. Dongfang Yuzhu sighed and suddenly raised his hand. A ray of saint energy instantly hit a box above his head. Bang! The wooden box was smashed into pieces, and a dazzling light flashed before everyone's eyes. A dagger made of pure silver jumped out from it. With a whistling sound, it spun in a circle and flew back to Master Dongfang's hand. Pooh! Because of the shock of the power, many practitioners who had been meditating suddenly spat out mouthfuls of blood and opened their eyes in shock. All the wooden boxes on the ceiling seemed to have been awakened by something, and began to make clanking sounds at the same time. After a few whooshing sounds, a few boxes suddenly flew towards the crowd. The Xiozhia were shocked at first, then they hurriedly deployed a defensive barrier. They worked together to throw out a few bursts of energy to hit the wooden box. The wooden box exploded in the air, but nothing fell out. Only a strong gust of air swirled up, and suddenly counterattacked. Arbor raised his hand, and dozens of attack talismans teleported in front of the airflow array. With a loud bang, the crowd below all prostrated themselves on the ground, their expressions slightly frozen. Chapter 5682. There were actually traps hidden in these empty wooden boxes. If it weren't for Madame Mo's help, they would have suffered a huge loss on the spot. He didn't know how many wooden boxes there were hanging above his head. If he wasn't careful, he might accidentally explode them all. Everyone couldn't help but shiver. Master! An East Region cultivator widened his eyes in shock. Why are you doing this? At this moment, the originally clean ground was also emitting a strange red light, which actually intersected with the red light on the roof beams. The entire main hall fell into a dead silence. No one made a sound for a long time. They only looked at their feet with vigilance. Gradually, they saw the general appearance of the ground. The red light actually painted a picture on the ground of the main hall. What's going on? It looks like a dragon. Someone stammered. Everyone followed the dragon's winding body and saw the red light lighting up the dragon's body inch by inch. As the red light moved up, everyone could clearly see that the dragon's neck was lit up. The dragon's head was lit up. The dragon's lifeless eyes seemed to be about to be lit up by the red light. At this critical moment, a long sword stabbed into the ground with a whoosh and pierced the dragon's eyeball, preventing the red light from lighting it up. Everyone felt that their hearts were about to jump out of their chests just now. At this moment they slightly adjusted their mentality. When they turned their heads to look, their jaws almost dropped to the ground. Baby Mo opened a wooden box, then threw it away, and went to get another one. That sword just now, it was obviously the blood sword that the child had found in the middle hall. It was stuck in the ground, right in the middle of the dragon's eyeball. At such a tense moment, this child was actually picking through the pile of wooden boxes, as if he was picking trash. He was picking very happily. The wooden boxes that were originally suspended in midair were now stacked on the ground. This strange child sat in the middle of a pile of wooden boxes of different heights. He picked one through one and picked another. His little face was tense, and he seemed a little unhappy. A practitioner from the Eastern domain asked out of curiosity, "Did you pick anything good?" "No." The child's face was filled with indignation. He casually threw out another wooden box. "Most of them are empty. They're all lies. There was no gift in the box." This was extremely unfriendly to the baby. Every year, when daddy, mommy's uncles, and aunties gave her birthday presents, there would always be a surprise. None of them were empty. It was simply strange. There were so many empty boxes in the main hall. It looked magnificent, but in fact the heavenly axiom Grandpa was poor, right? Sir Qiao Qiao expressionlessly scrutinized his son's small expression before turning his head to say to Emolien, "How vexing." Emolien. When the child chooses treasures, he is very similar to you. Wife, didn't you notice? Even if I'm vexed, I'm like you, my wife, not me. Roar. Qiao Mu cast a glance at her husband, and the latter beamed at her with a radiant smile. Wife, are you tired? Do you want to take a rest at the side? I think you're just a lackey. Everyone wanted to spit at him. What time was it? The entire main hall was locked, and the dragon on the ground looked strange and scary. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.